Excuse me. We were called to order at 5 p.m. to close session. We adjourned, and we now have a report from closed session.
With respect to every item of business to be discussed in closed section pursuant to Ed Code 35146 and 4891220, Government Code Section 49060 and 49078, quiz afterwards, and the Family Rights and Privacy Act, USC Section 1232, the board recommends the following regarding student discipline matters. The board recommends for the expulsion of student 01302020A. It's a roll call.
Roll call?
Oh, we have to roll.
Okay. Trustee Water? Aye. Trustee Jankowicz?
Aye.
Trustee Sela Martin?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares?
Aye.
Trustee Shank? Trustee Gracia?
Abstain.
With that, if we could take a moment of silence for student Aiden Deneke, School Harvest Middle School, grade 8th, who passed away unexpectedly on Friday, January 17th of this year. Thank you. Flag salute. If I can have Miss Laureen Shallon, a retired librarian, please lead us in the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcement. This meeting is recorded for live streaming and archiving on the district YouTube channel. Also, quick note for everyone that will be stepping to the mic or podium or here on here next to me. Mics are not working in the boardroom, but the voices are being recorded to the YouTube channel. So when you're standing at the podium, if you can please speak just a little bit louder so we can hear you. I'm dealing with the cold, so I only have one popped ear, so you know how that works, okay? All right, so approval of agenda?
So moved.
Second.
A first by Mr. Gracia and a second by Mr. Shunk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of minutes?
I would like to amend the minutes. Item K1C, I thought we should list the 4 committees, and K1D, I thought we should list the assignments of our respective board members to the various cities. And then in K5C, I wanted to note that my concern was with some of the expansive language in the resolution and not generally the bond itself.
I'll second those amendments if you want a second.
And I'm sorry, what was the last letter? You said K?
K5C.
That's in the minutes. Okay, I have a first by Mr. Gracia and a second by Mr. Shunk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now we have excuse me, recognition of visitors and employee organizations. Anybody? Yes. You can abstain. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back, and we have one abstention by Ms. Robin Jankowitz. She was not present at that meeting. Okay. Recognition of Student of the Month. We have Napa Valley Adult Education and Vintage High. Recognitions of Student of the Month are sponsored by Napa Valley Education Foundation. We will start with Napa Valley Adult Education.
Well, again, thank you for having us here tonight. Let me though start by thanking board members that were able to make it to our December graduation ceremony. That was very, very kind, and it was a nice first event that we plan on carrying forward. The kind of that momentum that we feel on that night, we get to bring forward today. We're bringing 2 students. We're going to start first with which is a first for us. We're recognizing a culinary student, and we have a partnership with Salvation Army, and we do a series of cohorts each year with members at the Salvation Army and their students there. We are fortunate tonight that one of the chefs that works with us in that program, Eric Mignani, he said this would help if I did that, Eric Mignani. Eric is going to come up and introduce his student, Daniel Bard. So, gentlemen.
I'm also just getting over a cold, so bear with me here. I'll try to use my big voice. Thank you very much. I am the newest member here at the program here at the Salvation Army, but I am a part of the school district here. This was a real honor for me to be a part of this program. I've worked for nonprofits in the past in the same kind of capacity, but this one was really being able to be focused on the educational aspect of it and bringing in deserving individuals that are looking forward to taking this opportunity to advance themselves in a vocation that could be not just a life skill, but also a lifelong career, if you will. So I had 12 individuals join me back in October during the fires. It was a little scary, but these individuals jumped right in and helped out, and were very enthusiastic. To this day, we're about 2 weeks away from graduation. I still have 12 students, so no attrition. Looking forward to that. Daniel was, right off the bat, self-proclaimed, never been in a kitchen. I don't know anything whatsoever, but he was one of those students that immediately were ready to ask the questions and to jump in, and every time I turned around, when students were running to take the breaks, he was like right there sweeping and cleaning, and I just knew right off the bat that I had somebody special with us. And all my students are special. All my students. I have another one here too. Daddy loves you too. But it was one of those
You are
individuals
being
that just,
recorded.
it just really stood out, and I recognized that right off the bat, and I just wanted to promote that enthusiasm. So when I was asked to nominate the student that really made the biggest change over the course of the program, I felt Daniel Bard here was that individual. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Daniel Bard.
Nice.
Hello, Napa Valley Unified School Board. My name is Daniel Lee Bard, and this is my instructor, Eric Mignani, as well as my friend and fellow student, Richard Clayton. I would like to thank you on behalf of the Salvation Army Culinary Training Academy and Adult Education for selecting me as Student of the Month. and providing me the opportunity to share with you a little about myself. I am a high school graduate from Carson High School, Carson, California, class of 2010. I can honestly say that after receiving great joy and satisfaction from acquiring my high school diploma, I did not continue my education and decided getting right to work and becoming employed was in my best interest. And that's the path I chose. And over this past decade, up until my first day at the Culinary Academy, I have not been engaged with any academic growth. But as of my first day in class with the Salvation Army, I knew I had made a decision that filled a void in my life, a craving for something more. And from that day forward, I have been growing in my education and building the foundation not only for a new career, but for a whole new life. And upon completion of the Salvation Army Culinary Training Academy course, I plan to continue attending the Napa Valley Adult School and take the Spanish classes that are provided there. To furthermore feed my craving to learn, and for that I am truly grateful and would like to say thank you, good night, and God bless.
Thank you. I know.
Let's do a double one first, and then we'll step in. So the great stories with our high school students just continue to come. And Kristen Waters, who is our high school lead teacher, is going to introduce Meadow Moss to you. But Meadow is just a bright spot in our programs. Her story is fabulous. It's clear why her teachers enjoy her so much, and I think you'll get a sense of it very quickly. And so if I can have Kristen and Meadow join me. So again, Kristen Waters.
Good evening, board. It's nice to see you again. I met you at our graduation in December. That was very exciting, very proud moment as a teacher. But this is another huge moment as a teacher. I'm very proud of the program that we have and all the accomplishments that the students have gained, and very proud that I get to be a part of that, especially with Meadow. She's definitely a bright light in the program. She is an example to all the other students in the program with the pace that she sets, the amount of credits that she finished. She came to our program about 1.5 years ago, and she has worked very quickly and very efficiently and learned a lot and enjoyed what she is doing. And I'm really proud to have her in class and have her be that example for all the other students and what they can do and how quickly they can do it and how positively they can do it. So Meadow, I know she has some words to share with you all. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for this opportunity. So I began my high school at St. Helena High, but I dropped out the first semester of my sophomore year due to many hardships. These included moving around from home to home, one new school after another, facing bullying, depression, and lack of schoolwork support. And most of all, my mother's influence while never being present in my life. My mother removed me from my IEP classes the first day of my freshman year, which is an individualized educational plan for children with learning disabilities. Next, after dropping out, I got a job and then another for a total of 6 years, during which time I was diagnosed with endometriosis at age 19. I was terminated from my most recent job under medical discrimination. At this point, I realized I really needed my high school diploma to better my own life. In April of 2018, I enrolled into Ms. Tyler's high school diploma program at the Napa Adult Education, under the full support, both emotionally and financially, of my papa, who is here with my Nana tonight. And since he's done that, I have been able to just focus on my schooling for this past year and a half to get this accomplished. Napa Adult has provided many positive and influential things for myself. My teachers have gone above and beyond to help me get where I want to be. The school has paid for an extracurricular photography class last summer through the Napa Valley College just to help me gain credits towards my high school diploma. Napa Adult even led me to a tattoo removal program that has helped me raise my confidence in future job interviews. I am now aiming to finish my last 5 remaining credits in the early February. I am dying to go back to work again with my diploma completed. I am also excited to attend Napa Valley College for my general ed classes to continue in a dental hygienist program. My hardships have made me who I am today, but I am very proud to have overcome all of this and with what is next to come, as are my Nana, Papa, teachers, and staff at the Napa Adult School. It wouldn't have been possible without all of you, so thank you very much for all you have done.
So in closing, let me thank the board again for allowing the adult school to continue and do what we do. It's oftentimes it's just we're in the right place at the right time, and the students show up, and we kind of just have to get out of their way and let them do their stuff, and they do, and it's fabulous. So thank you.
Vintage High School.
All right, good evening and thank you. Dr. Musetti, NVUSD, Board of Education, the Ed Foundation, and District Administration that's here this evening. Happy New Year. As an educator, I cherish the opportunity to celebrate 2 New Years each year, one the first day of school and one on January 1st. This approach fits nicely with my obsession in goal setting, planning, and reflecting. Isn't it lucky to be a Vintage High staff member? I don't know about that. The seniors I'm presenting to you this evening for November and December Board Students of the Month embody the greatness of Vintage High School while also highlighting the incredible range of personality and expression on our campus, which I have to say is one of my favorite things about being surrounded by 1,800 plus students and members of our collective community. The Vintage High Board Student of the Month for the month of November is Camby's Riza. Camby's, can you come up? All right, so Camby's so far in his high school career has earned a 4.75 GPA that puts him in the top handful of his graduating class. What's most interesting to me is that when you ask Camby's to reflect on his Vintage High School experience, and then you ask his teachers what he's like, you get this really interesting complementary responses. When I asked Camby's, what's your favorite thing about Vintage High School? He responded, well, the variety of challenging courses that it's offered and really pushed me. Given he's taken nearly every challenging course at Vintage and scored basically an A in all of them, the fact that his favorite thing is the course offerings and the rigor is just really pretty great. His appreciation for the opportunity to learn and his achievements are so amazingly complemented by the way he's described by his teachers. I asked a few of them, and I have to say, all of them were very positive. But the one I loved the most was his AP World History teacher, Mr. Schmitz. I said, tell me about Camby's. What's he like in class? Mr. Schmitz thought about it and replied, Camby's is under the radar amazing. Not showy, not always raising his hand, completely under the radar, but in his moments of surfacing, hands down, the most amazing. Next year, Camby's plans to attend UC Berkeley and major in computer science. I proudly present to you Camby's Riza.
Good evening, NVUSD Board of Education, Dr. Musetti, and District Administrators. It is an honor to have been chosen as Board Student of the Month. Since my sophomore year, I've managed to get a 4.5 GPA or higher every semester, even getting a 5.0 GPA in the second semester of my junior year. From my second SAT in junior year to my third SAT in senior year, I managed to raise my score by 100 points. These academic accomplishments, however, would not have been possible without the help of my teachers, Mr. Merkner, Mr. Schmitz, and Ms. Lamont, who have all been integral to my academic success in high school. First, I would like to thank Mr. Merkner. His honors pre-calculus class is one of the most interesting courses I've taken advantage. Going into class, I already knew that I had an affinity for mathematics and science courses. The class reinforced concepts that I had learned in years prior, while also allowing me to learn tons of knowledge that would prove vital on the SAT and in calculus. Mr. Merkner taught the material thoroughly, and he also explained the applications of mathematical technique had in the outside world. Next, I would like to thank Mr. Schmitz. His AP World History class taught me skills that I've used in every history class I've taken since. Prior to taking the course, my knowledge of history and of how to write historical essays was lacking. Throughout Mr. Schmitz's class, my writing skills saw significant improvement, which set me up for success in future courses, especially AP US History. The class was always interesting and engaging due to the projects we completed throughout the year. Mr. Schmitz's class not only strengthened my writing skills, but also made me interested and excited to learn about history in a way I had not been before. Next, I would like to thank Ms. Lamont. Her AP English language class was the first class that truly interested me. My writing and grammar skills improved immensely throughout the course. The grammar I learned in the class ended up being absolutely vital to my increased score on the SAT. Ms. Lamont's intensive test prep toward the end of the year was integral to my success on the AP test. Finally, I would like to thank everyone at NVUSD for giving me the resources to succeed throughout high school and for preparing me to succeed in college.
Cambies, you can't go sit down yet. As a proud alumni Golden Bear, with a proud alumni Golden Bear to my left, we're going to practice. On the count of three, we're going to say, "Go Bears." 1, 2, 3. Go Bears.
Oh boy, oh go Aggies, yeah, all right, so the Vintage High Board Student of the Month for the month of December is Una Morrissey. Una's not here tonight, which I will explain. If Cambies is our under the radar student, Una is definitely our above the radar student, but above the radar in the really the best way. Una is actively involved in student government and leadership. She is truly present and engaging on campus. I get to chat with Una every single week because she's during one of the days each week she does the daily bulletin, and that follows my principal announcements for the day, so we really get to catch up. Una is, like most board students of the month, a really stellar student. A 4.6 plus GPA, certainly that impressive lineup of classes that have contributed to that. But what really defines and drives Una, and why she's not here this evening, is that she's an extremely talented dancer, primarily a ballerina. Una is part of the Berkeley Ballet Theater, and I promise you that she is dancing, performing, auditioning with ballet whenever she's not at school. Una is amazing, but she's also pleasantly normal and human. I asked Una to describe herself, and she said, "I know I'm a ballet dancer, and I know I'm a good student, but I'm also really clumsy and I'm forgetful." Sounds like a healthy balance to me. Una's plans include college. She wasn't willing to share any of the places. She said she's got a few reach schools out there she doesn't want to say yet. She's going to major in business, and of course she's going to dance. So I'm going to read Una's speech. Imagine that she is standing here instead of my scratchy voice. All right. First, thank you to Dr. Musetti, the NVUSD board, the Ed Foundation, and district administrators for recognizing me this evening with the honor of Board Student of the Month. Throughout high school, I have been fortunate to have some amazing teachers who have influenced my growth as a student. These teachers believed in me and taught me valuable lessons to take into my future. The first teacher is Miss Nelson Fly, who taught my freshman Spanish 2 class. Her class made learning Spanish fun and encouraged me to continue taking Spanish and get my seal of biliteracy. Miss Nelson Fly taught me the importance of good communication and how to effectively work with others. Another teacher that helped me grow is Miss Castellazzo. Sophomore year, AP Chemistry was the hardest class I'd ever taken and truly pushed my skills to the next level. The studying and note-taking habits Miss Castellazzo taught us, I still use today and will continue to use in college. Her class taught me what I can accomplish when I fully apply myself and take responsibility in my work. Mr. Thomas, I have been lucky to have as a teacher twice in high school both this year, sorry, Una, and my sophomore year for English. The writing we did always pushed me to think outside the box and leave my comfort zone. The books we have read have challenged my understanding and have also helped me be more aware of the world around me, and so I not only grew as a student, but as a person. Thank you all for this honor and for hearing Una through me. Thank you. Do I get the bottle rub?
Good try.
Always gonna try, always gonna try. Thank you.
And if I can get all the student of the months, teachers, principals.
Family members.
Yes.
Yep.
We're going to face that way, so if everyone can Does this work for you there?
So public comment on non-agenda items. I do not have any comment cards. And before I have our Board of Education, excuse me? Yes. Yes, please.
Hi, Dr. Massetti and the board. Oh, sorry.
So just really loud.
Okay. Hi, my name is Norma, and I'm a parent of a fifth grader. I'm very supportive, and I really believe in dual immersion. As you could see, she's going to, at some point, go to 6th grade, and I know that there's, as an option, Harvest. I would like to know if you guys have thought, or is there anything in place for a second option in regards to dual immersion in middle school, for middle schools yet, or any plan, future plan? Because I would like to have more options as a parent, and I know that other parents, including myself, would love to see more options in dual immersion.
Yeah, thank you for expressing your interest tonight. We currently do not have any plans and expansion at the middle school level, but Miss Marianne Valles, our Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, can take down your name and we can follow up with more detail to your inquiry.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. I'm going to move from our reports, H2A, recognition of Pueblo Vista as a 2020 California Distinguished School.
The award back here. So, are these working or no? These aren't working either, so. Okay.
It's recorded for the YouTube.
Okay.
You can't hear yourself.
Okay, got it. All right, so it is my pleasure. This is an item that I, in agreement with our board president and the rest of the board, thought it was absolutely critical to bring it here to the public this evening. We, as a governance team, and I know I speak on behalf of all of the NVUSD administration, staff, and colleagues across the district, are incredibly proud of Pueblo Vista Elementary School. Try and not get emotional for you. Pueblo Vista, as you all know, has been named a California Distinguished School. And this is no small feat. This is an incredibly important distinction, especially in 2020. The California Distinguished Schools program has been, in various forms, a program that has been sponsored by the California Department of Education for several years. And many of us may be familiar with it, and we may recognize California Distinguished Schools in our current district. We know we have others that have also received that in the past. But today, in 2020, to receive the California Distinguished School, you have to demonstrate an incredible amount of progress and growth on state accountability measures that are incredibly rigorous in two of the key content areas of English language arts and mathematics. Pueblo Vista has been working hard since its inception as the district's first dual language immersion program as a district school, right? We want to honor and recognize that we have Napa Valley Language Academy that has existed as a charter school, but Pueblo Vista is a traditional district school and has done an extraordinary job of building a gold standard program in dual language education. We want to commend the staff at Pueblo Vista, so I'm going to just take a moment. Principal Roca, who was very energized when I first came here in July of 2018, to reach out to me very promptly about my agenda, knowledge, and capacity to support dual language education. And I was excited to tell her that I think I mentioned my expertise and professional commitment and philosophy, even in the selection process as superintendent of schools, that I deeply value dual language education. I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for all students, not only because they have the gift of learning a second language, but also because they have an incredible opportunity to learn about multicultural competency and really connecting across difference and creating alliances across difference. PV has created a gold standard example of that in our school district. So from the educational standpoint, we are so proud of you, but also from a school climate and culture standpoint, we are also so proud of you. So thank you, Principal Roca, for your leadership in establishing this program in the NVUSD school district, for remaining committed through very challenging times, because to build a DLA program is a very laborious process that requires a deep amount of commitment and a spirit of not giving up. It's not easy. So I want to thank you personally for the energy, for the commitment that you put into this model and getting the results in this model. And I also want to thank the teachers. I hope I don't miss anybody, but I was told I have Miss Wendy Fitzgerald here, Laura Roldan, Aiden Arroyo, Teresa Alcantar, Katie Kenzak, Beatriz Olivar, Robin Thompson, Lee Hillman, Isabel Magana, and Marcy Solomon, and all the other teachers at Pueblo Vista. We know a principal can't do it alone, So we appreciate your teacher leadership, the rigor of teaching and learning that you bring to the classroom, simply because you are teaching in 2 languages. And we know that that's such a gift that you can give in the classroom to our children. So thank you for making sure that we have a cadre of students moving through our system who have the gift of bilingualism and biliteracy. And without your leadership as teachers, as principal, and any parents and community members and support staff that we have in the room tonight in the boardroom, we also want to thank you. We want to thank you for your hard work, your commitment, and your passion to creating this program of excellence. I do want to brag a little bit for them. They are, as a dual immersion school on the state accountability measures, they are, there's, the highest level is blue, and they use colors in Sacramento. So blue is the highest level, and green is the second highest level. And in English language arts, a school that is teaching students in Spanish and English, when our students get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in this dual immersion model, the students are obviously building upon their primary language of Spanish and getting outstanding results at the intermediate grades in English. They are green on the California school dashboard. And Puebla Vista is the only elementary school in the district as a dual language program attaining the highest level that can be attained in mathematics, which is blue. So those are 2, yeah, they deserve a lot of cheers. And you've not only created a proof point here for NVUSD that language doesn't have to be a barrier, that language and 2 languages is actually an asset, and an asset that can be leveraged when there are high expectations and a commitment to rigor in the classroom. So thank you for not only creating that proof point within our district, but also thank you for creating that proof point in the state. As many people, there will always be folks that challenge whether or not biliteracy, bilingualism, and dual language education is a stellar model for learning, and you've created another proof point in California. There were not many in the pool that were dual language schools for being honored in this distinction, so we commend you for doing that for not only the district but also for the state. And then the last thing, when the awards come, they just don't stop coming. You're here to receive the honor from the school board around California Distinguished School, but we just recently in the last week also heard of a second distinction. Puebla Vista is a magnet school, had a magnet, a grant, and they did extraordinary work in the area of science instruction as well, so dual immersion education and science. And they recently, through the Magnet Schools of America, were announced as the 2019-2020 recipient of the Award of Distinction, which is, again, a high-performing magnet school. So, I don't know if 2 is it, but you're 2 for 2 right now. And so, so congratulations to Puebla Vista on behalf of this Napa Valley Unified School Board of Education and myself and my entire team. So you can come up and receive the award. You want to do it? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Do you want to say anything at the podium? So, just give it to her.
Yeah. I will say that's the first time someone's made me cry in a long time. What an absolute honor. Wow, I wasn't expecting the flood of emotions as you congratulated our school, and I sat next to Ms. Hillman and Ms. Maestra Roldan and Wendy Fitzgerald and so many of us that started that program, and through so many sweat, blood, and tears, we didn't give up. We have an amazing office staff, Kathy and Ceci and Miss Ceci and all of my teachers here today. Some of them may have just been here for a year, but they jump on board and work so hard to follow the vision and the structure of our school to make sure we continue academic excellence. There's not one person in our school or parent or student that doesn't have high expectations, and I feel so honored to get to lead Puebla Vista, the parents and the students, and these amazing teachers. So I think we've always had distinguished students, distinguished
teachers, and then we've been a distinguished school, but it's such an honor to have the state recognize it, and really, it's truly an honor to have the school board recognize us today. And thank you for your support with dual immersion. And Dr. Musetti, yes, I appreciate all of your office visits when you hear me get really excited about dual immersion. So thank you so much. And one more, just big round of applause for these amazing teachers that work so hard. And we look forward to to the day to celebrate with all of our students, because we know it's the student performance and it's all their hard work that got us here as well. So, and thank you, parents, for not giving up on me, right? All the pioneers out there, we did it, we built it. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, we'll give you the award now, and then we'll take some pictures. Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's look, it's a little better on the background if it takes this way. So, face the top.
Make your break now.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Well, what did I tell you? I went to that school and I'm not surprised. Yeah. Yep. All right. That cute little girl.
Okay, reports, Board of Education and Student Board Representative reports.
Sure. So on January 21st, I toured McPherson Elementary. I had a great visit, got to see the new paint job on campus, and really came to appreciate how it really helps to tie the campus together with the coherent color scheme across all the buildings. Also got to see a little bit of their new finishing kitchen, which is still very much a work in progress. On the 21st, I also attended a meeting regarding the implementation plan for Escape, which is the district's new financial software. On the 23rd, I met with Assistant Superintendent Manguala about first and second interim to get a better understanding of the district's financial plan. And on the 24th, attended the branding committee meeting wherein we reviewed some logo designs. And then on the 28th, attended the teacher town hall, which was well attended and had some good questions being asked by those in attendance.
So I attended the Escape Technology Project kickoff. I think my session was a little better attended than yours, but that may have just been timing. I also snuck into the Napa County Bicycle Coalition NCOE Safe Routes to School audit at Vintage. I had a wonderful time at the American Canyon High Choir Crab Feed this past weekend. And 2 times a week I swing by the new Napa Junction campus, and there are a bunch of sticks that have gone vertical.
My most recent, I think, activity was actually today. I was at, in one of the rooms here at Napa High. We had a fantastic group of our Napa High students from the Layla program come for Career Day. It felt really, I felt like a Napa High School student for second, then course, as the students came up, reminded me just how old I am. But it was really just a beautiful day to see so many students ask about how did I reach to the career that I have today. I had a couple of them ask me about my role as a board of trustee. So it was really engaging in that sense. And I had created this timeline because they would ask me about, how did you get here? And I'm just like, I'm such a visual person, and I was actually proud of myself that I created some visuals by hand, not the computer, but by hand. And so it was really exciting to engage with them in that way. And they just had some very insightful comments and questions about their future, and just was really inspiring to me as we continue with our decision-making process as a board member. But it was really inspiring today to be at Napa High among so many involved students.
I have been nowhere. I have been in Colorado for 10 days, just got back. My activities shortly.
That's okay. Through the magic of the internet, we were commenting on, board packet, et cetera. So folks, she's studying, she's doing her part. Yes. Okay, I had a couple of school visits. I went to Northwood Elementary, had a delightful time with the principal with whom I used to work in the same department at Napa High School, and she showed me around, and it's really a very sweet, nice little school, and the kids were happy, and I got to see the beginning of an assembly, and then was taken on a tour of the campus. I enjoyed it very much. And then I also went to West Park this week, and where I had a great lunch, a healthy and tasty lunch, and visited their library, which is quite good and being used. And lunchtime, I got inveigled into exercising with a hula hoop. And, after a lot of these visits, I wonder why I never taught elementary school, why I stuck around in high school, and then I think it's the hula hoop, but I am wiped out. And then, last night I enjoyed myself at Northwood's Dine and Donate via Corona.
So I have a almost like a shout out here for Valley Oak High School and their staff. And just to get the names right, I'm sorry because I am short in memory right now. I'm getting over this cold. But first of all, the leadership with Miss Maria Cisneros, Brian Marcus. This morning I had the grand pleasure, or actually yesterday evening, of hearing directly from Maria Cisneros that my son would be graduating early today. So when we arrived at Valley Oak, he assumed I had no clue. He didn't want anyone to know, and if anyone knows my son, he likes to, not be on the radar whatsoever. And Marcus truly went out of his way, and I think that this is a daily practice, or a practice that they do very, very frequently, where they praise and they acknowledge every single student, whether they graduate early or leave that high school. And it was really rewarding. JJ fit right in. I thought he was going to shy away from the entire celebration. So over the intercom at Valley Oak, they announced his graduation, and the pouring in of all these teachers and staff, just to tell him, we're going to miss you. Have a nice, rest of your life, but you're coming back next week. You owe me a latte, or you owe me this, because they have little bets going on. It was quite funny, but I have to say that what it has been created at Valley Oak is something very, very special, and that is inclusion. And it is truly like no child left behind. I know it sounds cliche, but it really does feel that way. And I have to say that the transition from such a large high school, which nothing against a larger high school at all, but it didn't fit with my son JJ, and I have Valley Oak to thank for that. So I praise them very, very much. These 2 weeks also of so JJ, my son, congratulations. And then also, Elba couldn't have prepared me for the first 5 cohort that I participated at the beginning of the week. And the first 5, I know a lot of us see commercials, you know, small children, but this was really a self-reflection of who we are and who we serve and what we do with purpose and vision. And I have never been so tested and carried everyone else's weight or their pain and their visions on my shoulders. So we have a lot of great people doing so much for our county. It's I can't describe it, and it's okay, because I can't, like they told me in the program, that it's okay if I don't find closure to it, but or that I have or can solve problems, but we're working, and we're working really, really hard. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you, Elba, because it's a great experience. And one last thing, I'm sorry, Dr. Massetti. Napa County Hispanic Network had an error with their link to their scholarship. They're extending the Latino scholarship. I will forward all that information, and they will be extending the application process through February 13th, 14th. It's still undecided since it lands on a Valentine's Day, so we're not quite sure which date, but we are going to extend it 2 more weeks. And that being, we had such a small amount of people, students apply for the scholarship. So I think there was just a link error, it just wasn't connecting. So we'll get you that information as soon as we get the new flyer. And that completes my report.
Yep. So I wanted to start out, thank you, President Martin, for opening the meeting in honor of our Harvest Middle School student, Aiden Deneke, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to also thank Trustee Gonzalez for attending the funeral services with me earlier this week as a representative for the school board. Loss of student life is always very, very challenging, and our thoughts and prayers are with the family as they navigate a very difficult time. I wanted to thank Assistant Superintendent Marianne Valles and our Director Mike Mansway of Student Services for the incredible work that they did supporting the Harvest Middle School community. They worked very closely with staff there, with all of our teachers, our support staff, and most importantly, offered services to students as our middle schoolers at Harvest processed that loss. We know how devastating and challenging that could be for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, especially the circle of friends that Aiden had in the 8th grade. And so I really can't envision navigating those challenges without the skilled staff that we have to address these very emotional matters. And so I just want to recognize that work during some very, very difficult times. I've also sort of connected to that. I've been spending time in the field, focused time in the field since the last board meeting, visiting all of the wellness centers with our Assistant Superintendent, Rob Manguala. Just being new to the organization, I thought it was important for him to see that in action. It is a significant investment that we make here in the district at the middle school level. And so I wanted to get into sort of the nitty-gritty and the details of how the wellness centers work. And so I've been spending time. I was able to visit Silverado Middle School, Harvest Middle School, and Redwood Middle School wellness centers. And I also want to recognize the hard work our staff is doing in those centers. And, you know, just it's very clear that many of our students just see it as a hub and a resource on campuses for just addressing a variety of socio-emotional needs that our young people are facing. I was scheduled to go to ACMS and had to cancel because of the sudden emergency that we had with Aiden's loss of life, but I will be rescheduling and getting out to ACMS as well. And so talking with our principals as well to just really hear about the value add of the wellness centers and then what are our areas of growth. to really start helping me think, along with my senior leadership team, around how we sustain this program that was brought in a few years ago vis-a-vis grants. And so I want to get to work on that, because we know behavioral health and mental health are supports that our students need, and we hear that over and over and repeatedly from our principals, our teachers, and our parents, and in fact, even some of the students themselves. In the spirit of that, I have been also pursuing opportunities where we can get some funding for mental health services. As I kind of dive into this area, that is supervised within the instructional division, there's some opportunities that have come out vis-a-vis the state, and also just grant opportunities. So I'm just spending time kind of in that area, pursuing any funding streams that might be possible for NVUSD. So that's kind of been an area of work for me over the course of the last month. Another use of my time, besides some of those school visits focused on health and wellness, is I have been meeting with all of our site administrators that have 3 or more years of site leadership experience, just sort of touching base with them. I like to do one-on-ones with our administrators in the field, having sort of career conversations with them around their professional journey and where they see themselves as educational leaders. Also talking to them about their current strengths in leadership and what are their areas of growth, and how we can put some supports in place to continue to improve their areas of growth. And then also attaining feedback from them on the restructuring of the instructional division, which is a presentation that I will do later. And then I also just want to echo, it was really exciting to be at Napa High School today for the Layla Career Conference and be so inspired by so many students who are just eager for adults to just lay out the path of opportunity for them. They're just like, tell us what the path is. And so I felt like today we kind of responded to that demand from our young people. And then I just wonder, you were hiding behind all the Pueblo Vista people, but Leslie Wadler is here, our new president. She's newish. Soon we can't call you new, not for too much longer. Rookie. She's definitely in her first year. The president of NAPS is here, and we've also spent some time with NAPS this week and orienting them on our budget circumstances and building a relationship with Leslie as the new principal and the executive board. So thanks for also being here tonight. That concludes my report, and I'll pass on to the assistant superintendents.
Thank you and good evening. Tonight I'd like to highlight one of our summer programs and share some results from this fall. The Summer College Readiness Academy is a 4-week transition program for 8th graders who are promoting to high school, and it's offered at each of our comprehensive high schools and New Tech High. The program is focused on preparing students for success in 9th grade math specifically and developing a college-focused mindset. So about 175 students participated in the program this past summer in 2019, and I want to share what their first semester math grades look like. So 34% of the participants received an A in their first semester math class, 22.6% received a B, 21% received a C, 12% received a D, and unfortunately just under 10% did not pass their class. But I want to acknowledge Maria Cisneros for her leadership. She oversees and organizes the Summer College Readiness Program, and all the teachers and the staff who worked with our students. Next, I want to acknowledge some upcoming events in the visual and performing arts arena. With the support of the Napa Valley Festival, Jazz Reach, which is a traveling music education ensemble that comes from New York, will visit Napa schools between February 10th and 12th. The scheduled engagements include a master class and clinic with the American Canyon High School Jazz Band. They will also work with Redwood and Harvest Middle School bands, and they will perform at student assemblies that will be held at Donaldson Way and 2 other elementary schools that have yet to be identified. And lastly, another opportunity in the visual and performing arts arena, high school finalists from throughout Napa County will compete in the Napa County to be the Napa County representative for the California State Poetry Out Loud competition. It'll happen next Friday night at the Lucky Penny Theater. This is a spoken word competition in which students recite a memorized poem of their choosing. The county finals are open to the public and the admission is free. So we have participants from Napa, Vintage, and New Tech High Schools competing. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Good evening. Today, I participated in one of my roles as the representative to North Bay School Insurance Authority Board on behalf of NVUSD. I represent our district there along with the other members of North Bay School Insurance Authority, which is it's a pool or a collaborative of other school districts and counties that we pool our resources in order to be essentially self-insured. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that we don't just purchase insurance, property and liability, workers' comp from an outside company. This is actually a collaborative that we're part of. And one of the advantages in doing so is that we work together to find ways that we can reduce the costs of insurance, but also reduce injuries and improve the working conditions for our employees and the safety conditions of our students. So some of the things that we are that we've worked on through North Bay is in offering programs like Shoes for Crews, where we provide non-slip shoes for our custodians and food service workers. We have an employee assistance program. We do pre-employment physical testing for certain classifications of employees as well as drug testing. We provide, North Bay has a whole collection of trainings online and in person, so they provide supervisors academies, OSHA trainings, everything under the sun. And another feature that we use quite a lot is some ergonomic assessments that our employees can do to make sure that they are working in an optimal kind of condition for them. As a result of those efforts, I just want to give you some comparisons. Being part of North Bay School Insurance, our average claim cost for workers' compensation is around $14,500. Compare that in the rest of California, people who are not part of a North Bay School Insurance Authority, to $71,500. So these programs work. Our efforts here in reducing these costs are working. But I also want to highlight that we do have a bit of a crisis around property and liability insurance. And a lot of that is nothing to do with things that we are doing or not doing as a district or as a JPA, but it has to do with some things that we're going to have to figure out how to respond to. Things like changes in legislation that have extended the statutory time limits for people to make claims. Also, just being in California, the insurance market for fire has kind of dried up, and so there's very limited options, and it's very expensive. And finally, we're just seeing an overall trend of social inflation when it comes to judgments that are being awarded to plaintiffs. And all of those things are contributing to very high costs around property and liability. But there are things that our board is working on, and you may be then hearing about maybe recommended policies or other programs that we'd like to bring and put into place so that we can be proactive in addressing some of these kinds of claims and costs going forward. Thank you.
Good evening. I wanted to start by thanking the enrollment team and the data team for the feverish work they've been doing. They've been working weekends and late evenings trying to get all the data together for me to confirm our enrollment projections, which we'll be sharing with the admin team on Thursday. It's taken a great deal of teamwork, and I wanted to make sure and thank them out loud. I'm in the process of analyzing and comparing our data in areas that was rolled over, and includes open enrollment choices to our projections made by King & Associates and Decision Insight. And so I'm looking at 3 specific data points. And so all data points confirm a decline in enrollment. So we are seeing a decline in enrollment. Areas is showing the most significant decline, most of which can be explained, which I'll share below. And so our TK and K student enrollment areas is about 300 students below projections from both King Associates and Decision Insight. TK and K students have historically continued to enroll up until the beginning of the school. So one of the things that we need to do going forward is, again, we need to advertise a little bit better, try and make sure that our families enroll as soon as possible so we get data earlier. Also, our enrollment trends also confirm projections or the enrollment, I should say, in American Canyon is lower than projections. And again, historically, what's happened in that area is they've tended to enroll a little bit later. We'll continue to monitor this very closely and adjust as needed. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide each of you with an update with operational services. As I do with most of my reports, my focus will be on the strategic plan within NVUSD. It's goal number 4, tactical, proactive, and efficient asset management. And my comments will be relatively brief since our last meeting was approximately 2 weeks ago. The maintenance and operations departments have been working collaboratively to work together on standardizing light maintenance standards for custodians to perform to assist at school sites. In the job descriptions, it just says perform light maintenance standards, and we felt it was important to come up with what those standards should be. So we're in the process of developing those. In addition, we're participating on Monday with maintenance with the director of maintenance and myself and a few other of our key individuals, our head of shops, and learning about the facility inspection tool, which is part of the Williams Act assessment that we need to do every year. Within transportation, there's nothing new to report. In food services, pleased to announce that our director of food services has designed 2 trainings for the March 13th professional development that is going to be occurring at American Canyon High School, and we're continuing to finalize all the offerings that will be happening for transportation, maintenance, operation, and food services on this particular day. We're very excited about that. And tomorrow at River School, lunch is going to be for all. So if any of you would like to go to River School, there's a lunch offering that's going to be happening for all. And I believe the Van Pelt Construction Services is sponsoring this lunch. So thank you very much. That concludes my report for operational services.
Thank you. Approval of consent agenda. Consent agenda. Background information on these items is provided to the board prior to the meeting. A common motion takes action without discussion on a roll call vote unless discussion of items is requested by the board members.
I'd like to pull I4A.
I have a first by Mr. Joe Shunk and a second by Ms. Water. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
On I4A, which is the change order for the finishing kitchens, I wasn't clear on why a fire-rated serving wall was an unforeseen circumstance at Shearer. It seemed to me like we ought to have known that we needed such a thing, but it turns out that a fire-rated serving wall was actually in the original construction plans, but that it was not constructed to the plans originally. And so it was having to correct a defect in the original construction that we had no way of knowing was improperly constructed by the original contractor over 50 years ago. So that was sort of an explanation as to what happened there. So with that, I would move to approve.
Point of procedure, ma'am. Did you need a roll call vote on the consent agenda?
Roll call. Okay. Trustee Water?
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz? Trustee Martin?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares?
Aye.
Trustee Shunk?
Double aye.
Trustee Gracia?
Aye.
Now accepting Mr. David Gracia's comments.
I second.
I can, yes, I'll first, and
I'll
you can
second.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should get the same roll call.
And roll call.
Trustee Water?
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz? Trustee Martin?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares?
Aye.
Trustee Shunk?
Aye.
Trustee Gracia?
Aye.
Okay, action items. K1, business, I'm sorry. Sorry.
What about this one?
Can I, that was my quickly. I apologize, President Martin. On H3, facilities and bond program update. We just agendized it. We don't have a facilities and bond program update. The only thing we would like to note is that we are currently in the midst of launching community engagement with the American Canyon community. We'll be there on Monday night at 6 p.m. at American Canyon Middle School. And we will be discussing how the staff's recommendation to reallocate the $48 million cost savings that was generated by halting the construction project of the second middle school.
Thank you. Okay, J, presentations and discussion items. So very sorry. So very sorry. I'm really can't wait till this cold is gone. J1A.
I know, I'm gonna be sick.
NVUSD governance team seating arrangements during NVUSD board meetings, excuse me. This is a discussion item, so I brought this forward. I wanted to facilitate a little bit of a discussion regarding seating arrangements of the trustees. At CSBA, it was an open-ended conversation during the presidency training, and really, I just wrote a couple notes, and then we can open it up for discussion. So I personally find myself in the middle and center, almost as an authoritative figure, and really, I don't base the way that I lead as that I need to be front and center. The way I like to see it is almost like a servant leadership, and that is, I'd like to sit on the end with Miss Rosana Massetti, with Elba Gonzalez Mares to my left, and then Miss Jankowicz would still stay in her seat. That would make Miss Water move to Elba's seat, and Mr. Jose Hurtado would be sitting in this seat. And the way that I see this, I also see that it would help Vera and Julie also when we're doing roll call, that we get the student vote first and then we follow it along. Same as when we open our board for our reports. Our reports kind of just skip over me and then we come back this way. So I think it would give it a flow, and wanted to see if you all had any thoughts on that. And not
Comfortable.
It's fine, whatever you say.
Yep.
I kind of like the way it is now. I mean, it puts the officers of the board kind of front and center in the middle and gives the people in the audience a sort of a more direct line, I think, to addressing the people that are serving as officers of the board. So I do kind of like the setup that we have now, because it does kind of put the president front and center.
So, having served as president, I think twice in the last decade, I recognize it's a more conventional seating arrangement of placing the chair in the center, but from a purely practical standpoint, we do a lot of things sort of left to right. And frankly, sitting in the center, your head is on swivel like a bobble doll, trying to see if somebody to your right wants to speak or somebody to your left. So having a seat in the wing actually saves a little neck energy going on there. So I think it's certainly worth trying, because I'm aware of both the strengths of tradition, but also the drawbacks of the current approach.
I think my process of thinking is more the practical side of it. You know, I think as a board, there's no one vote above all. It's all of us voting together. We're one unit. So I'm not too attached to the location as much as what's more efficient and practical. So if that when you were explaining the flow, that made sense, actually. That kind of, because even like right now, like, oh, we were supposed to do roll call, and maybe if you were closer, then you would have maybe heard Vera kind of looking at you like, roll call, you know, I don't know. And so, or something like that, right? Yeah, and so I think that allows for, it's, you know, it's kind of interesting that we're having a discussion because it's not a, you know, it's not like a big deal, but there are moments of distraction. And that can really kind of allow us to focus on what's in front of us, which is the most important thing. And if that creates a good flow, then, and with your experience, with Joe's experience of being on that seat, mentioning, you know, not overlooking any particular board member's opinion by looking to the, you know, left and not paid attention, so.
I feel it just doesn't change our job description. Our job description is to be present, to do our due diligence, to vote accordingly, and where I sit doesn't change my responsibility, nor do I think it should change how somebody views me or my responsibility or the board at large. So I am comfortable with whatever change would be made.
You're not moving.
Well, and I'm not moving. You know what? And there you have it.
You're the only
She's
one that
taking
wouldn't.
I can't be near the gavel is really what the problem is.
I'm kidding. And I think there was one, Joe, you had mentioned, and this was just a side note, we were talking about, you know, just entertaining the idea and that we should be capturing the student vote first. And so then I think it would be a great chance to kind of do that. We don't have to vote on this tonight. It's just a discussion item. We could bring it up later. But I just kind of wanted to put that out there.
I don't think we need to vote on something like
No.
seating arrangements.
No. Okay.
It would not require a vote.
Okay.
And so Vera, I think the suggestion is when we do a roll call or a vote, it'll go from this end down that way.
Thank you.
So just in terms of direction, would you like to see then try that model starting at the February 27th board meeting?
That would be great. If it doesn't cause an extra burden, fine. We could still wait until another
I'm
meeting.
okay.
Thank you.
I'm all right.
Well, I'm equally fond of all of you, so you can just sprinkle me anywhere you like and I'll be fine.
J2 Business and Operations, J2A NVUSD Technology Plan.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Musetti. My name is Rabinder Mangawala, and this is Manuel Ruiz, our Chief Technology Officer. Tonight we'll be presenting about NVUSD's technology plan. This graphic summarizes our technology plan for NVUSD. The key to the success of all technology plans for a school district is ensuring that you have the necessary infrastructure to support teaching and learning in the classroom, ensuring the continuity of services in the event of a disaster, including backups and disaster recovery, helping to ensure the safety of our students and employees through the use of security cameras and communication systems, such as radios, and finally, providing students and employees with the devices in front of the classroom technology. We would like to emphasize that student devices are just a small part of our plan. They're a result of strong infrastructure. We will briefly speak about each of the items tonight. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before we can scale up the use of district technology tools, we need to build a technology infrastructure. Technology infrastructure needs to seem like electricity in the classroom, and I realized tonight as a reminder that that's not really a good joke right now when you think of PSPS, right? We walk into classrooms and the lights sometimes don't work. So, however, many teachers and students often wonder if the Wi-Fi will work or if they'll have enough internet bandwidth, especially as we continue to add devices to our network, security cameras, the Internet of Things, these smaller network management devices. They continue to use up bandwidth, and so what we need to do is we need to build technology infrastructure for 5 to 10 years out. If technology doesn't work, the very first time, teachers just won't use it. Manuel?
Cindy.
Thank you, Rob.
Backing up our data and having a robust disaster recovery system is critical. While we currently back up some of our data, we currently do not have the capacity to back up all of our data. We do not currently have off-site disaster recovery solution in place in case of a catastrophic event, such as a data center flooding or destroyed by a fire. We would lose our data. A disaster recovery solution for off-site backup and recovery will be part of the data center upgrade proposal that you all will see at the February board meeting. We plan to keep our disaster recovery server at the Alameda County Office of Education. A critical component of our infrastructure is internet bandwidth between each site. In simple terms, this is how fast data moves from devices out to the internet. We have published a request for proposal to increase our internet bandwidth from as low as 250 megabits per second to 10 gigabits per second. To put this in perspective, my home internet connection is 250 megabits per second. This is the same speed that we have at our elementary school sites. Sorry, Joe. Switches are another critical component to our network infrastructure. It's what allows our laptops, desktops, and Chromebooks to connect to the internet via a wired or wireless connection. Our goal is to standardize to 40 gigabits per second switches that are distributed throughout each school site. This allows for a robust network backbone that will support current and future devices at all sites. At the March board meeting, we will bring the vendor forward for this project. The data center is where our servers live. A server is essentially a giant computer with a lot more resources. Our servers are where the data that we host is kept. Some data, including Aries and our financial system, is kept in the cloud and hosted by third-party vendors. The servers in our current data center are outdated and need to be replaced with the latest technology. When designing a data center, the goal is to have the processing power and storage capability for the next 5 years. Once we upgrade our data center, we will have the ability to remotely spin up a server as needed and assign resources such as storage and memory. We will bring a quote for approval to the February board meeting. We are in the process of walking all sites with our security consultant, and we will be rolling out security cameras in phases across the district, starting with some of our smaller sites and scaling up. When the project is complete, we will have the ability to access our cameras from a single laptop or mobile device. The completion of this deployment is estimated at about 10 to 14 months, dependent upon site accessibility. Our security consultant is also working with the IT department and Crystal Communications to design a unified and redundant radio system that will work across all sites and buses. We are currently in the process of design and testing phase with the transportation department, and we anticipate bringing a quote to the February or March board meeting. For front of classroom, NVUSD has adopted the Promethean board for all sites. The feedback we've been receiving thus far has been outstanding. A key factor for that has been the training initiative the district has committed to. Ashley Green, our Promethean trainer, has been providing site, department, and individual training at all sites. The district has standardized on the MacBook Air for the teacher device and the Chromebook for the student device. We are currently at about 2-to-1 ratio. However, we are making progress with Chromebook deployments. We've deployed Chromebooks to 6 elementary school sites, grades 3rd through 5th. As you can see in this picture here, students at West Park are using the Chromebooks immediately after we had deployed there, right after the Christmas break. SolarWinds Web Help Desk is our new ticketing system that we have started to implement across the district. It offers many benefits, including native integration with Active Directory, helping us integrate with our existing user authentication system, automated ticketing workflows that improve response time to tickets, so particular requests go to the particular technicians that can address that request in a timely manner, increased visibility of requests, reporting capabilities, and FAQ capabilities that we plan on leveraging. It's a great solution for managing our IT ticketing requests. And last but not least, information security. This is a huge topic. It's an industry in and of itself, but to stay in the timely manner, I'll stick to the script. The ideal approach to security is a layered security approach. At the highest level, you have the firewall, and at the lowest level, you have endpoint protection. In between these security measures are many different types of security options. What we do here in NVUSD is use segmentation of the network to limit access to certain resources. We assign limited permissions to end users, giving them access only to what they need. Updating software and hardware with the latest security patches and updates. We remove legacy hardware and software from the network as they can become compromised due to lack of vendor support. But ultimately, the greatest security measure is training and communication among our end users, as they are the last line of defense, whether it's accessing a phishing email with a compromised link in it, or knowing that they shouldn't store their laptop in the back seat of their vehicle only to be stolen. This concludes our presentation for tonight. We can take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. I want to know more about the radios. What are we currently using, and why is this important or necessary?
Sure. So currently we're using a hodgepodge of radio systems, and so we do not have centralized radios that work from the district office out to the sites, and so it's critically important that we get a district-wide solution together. So in terms of where we're going with our radio system, we are designing with our security consultant a redundant system. So he's actually spent quite a bit of time walking our sites. Radios really depend on line of sight. If there's a hill in the way, they generally don't work. And so the way you get around that is you put repeaters on tall buildings and that are within your school district. And so our overall solution will have two main parts, one using repeaters and the other using the towers from Clear Communication. So Clear Communication is a company that we're pursuing for this quote that we'll bring to the board. In the event of an emergency, we'll have secondary access to their commercial grade towers. And also those towers will be used for our buses. So our buses we'll deploy radios to all of our buses. They'll actually be installed in the buses. They tend to work much better when they're installed in the buses. They'll use this. They'll also have the ability to open up private channels, and so there are HIPAA requirements. And so, for example, if you're in a bus and you're picking up a special ed student who maybe has a medical need, and you need to be able to call back to base, you want to be able to do that on a private channel. So they'll have the ability to do that also. And again, we plan on bringing to the board in the next couple months.
Does Clear Channel have a redundant power supply? I'm thinking to the fall when our friends at PG&E decide to take power from us.
It's a very good question. I'll have to look into it. In terms of radio towers,
Yeah.
I'd have to ask that question in terms of what that looks like. They're probably first by starting it's a good question, yeah.
Because in my mind, the advantage of radios is we're not reliant on cell towers, which have been, depending on what network you're on, more or less available during power shutdown. So I like the idea of backing up to Alameda County Office of Ed. Do you know if they mirror anywhere else? Because when the Great Quake comes in Northern California, it takes out the East Bay, then it works its way up to us.
And why Alameda? Was there a...
Well, there's a couple good reasons. One being, so the chief technology officer used to work for Rosanna and I in San Leandro. So we have a strong relationship with him. And so one of the things that we started when we first got into San Leandro was we needed offsite backups. And so we approached the chief technology officer at Alameda County and said, hey, you're right down the street from us. We actually get our internet from you. We need to develop our offsite backups right away. And so what we did is we fast-track that. And essentially what they do is they also have the technology support in the event of emergency where we needed to switch to a backup. We would just call them up on the phone and they would spin it up for us. And so also they have the ability for remote help. It's economical too. Again, we still need to work out the details. When we were in San Leandro, we paid ACOE, but due to our unique situation of being geographically about 65 miles away, which is about what you want for an offsite backup, we could probably just do a swap where he could keep some of his servers here and we could keep some servers with him. So it's a good relationship. I think if I recall right, Napa County Office of Ed is backing up to Alameda County also.
And one last question. I could have sworn American Canyon PD and Napa PD have access to our cameras. Is that still going to be the case?
So currently what they do is we have something on a demo practice. So what's going on right now is we're essentially testing a system with them right now. Moving forward, we'll develop a formal MOU. Right now, it's just testing the idea whether it works or not. And so formally, we anticipate to continue to give them access via an MOU, and they would continue to have access to it. It's just we're not looking at using the same software vendor. The software vendor that they use it's exceptionally more expensive. It's not sustainable. So one of the questions that I always have around these big projects is like, how do you put something in place that's sustainable? Part of that is ensuring that you use the right software and service going forward.
I have a question also. Where are we at with the rollout of the Promethean boards? Are they at every site now, or are we still working on that?
Yes, sir. We basically rolled out to our last site, I believe, last week. And so now we're sort of just going back over all sites and looking at any sort of classrooms. I think there's some sped classrooms that potentially didn't get Promethean boards. So we're just reevaluating the rollout and seeing where we have maybe missed a classroom. Another thing that we didn't apparently add to our list was libraries. And so it's kind of a hodgepodge at this point where some site libraries have them and some don't. So again, we need to sort of figure that out, see what sites libraries did not get the Promethean boards, and then roll some of those Promethean boards out.
Yeah, with projects like this, there's always like you hit 95%, 98% really very quickly, and then that last 2%, you just you don't realize that there was a space there, or you don't realize that there's somebody in that band room because the door was locked when you went by and you rolled them out, that type of thing. So there's always when we say we're done, it's never really 100% done with something like this because there's always rooms that pop up that you miss and little ones like that. But we're very close to being done.
Do we feel a need to update the tech master plan to reflect the current strategy and implementation? I know that we had one previously. It's clearly changed, modified, different strategy, different implementation process. Are we going to redo?
We can address that, but in terms of the need for a technology master plan, so they're no longer required by law. So school districts used to use technology master plans a lot because they were required by E-rate. If you accepted E-rate funding, you had to have a technology master plan per se that was published. It's no longer required by E-rate, but yes, it's a great idea to document everything that we're doing. This presentation kind of serves as an outline for that. So if that's a request,
in school districts for tech master plans, was that it was a
requirement, yeah. So if you accepted E-rate funds, you're required to do it. That's no longer required.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. How are we then doing on the rollout of the Chromebooks?
That's next. That's coming.
Yeah, so you all will be seeing in the under the action items a proposal to continue to finish the rollout at the elementary school level and then provide some carts at the high school levels for testing. As far as completion of one-to-one, after this rollout, we will be one-to-one at the elementary school and middle school level. However, because of the BYOD program at the high school level, we're technically not one-to-one at the high schools. So that's something that we have to sort of look at in the future.
And I would add, we have some policy implications. I'm glad that
Yes.
Reed's brought up the bring your own device. That was past policy of the district, and I think that the three of us have had discussions that we'd like to revisit that.
Yes.
It's problematic, especially in areas like testing. So for example, one of the things that we're doing for state testing is you're required to push out a secure browser. And so if you have to support it across multiple devices, it's almost impossible to support. Right. And then what happens to the teacher where they get ready to go test and a kid forgot their device? And so what we're kind of doing as a stopgap for now is we've reached out to the high schools and we asked them, okay, well, how many devices do you need for testing for now until we kind of unpack this, bring your own device. And so they'll have some testing carts. Because remember, at the high school, they're not testing at all grade levels. There isn't a need for one-to-one in terms of testing. 11th grade is the main grade you test in high school.
To Rob and Mandy's comments that there's also just an equity issue.
Right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
J3A, restructuring of management positions in the Instructional Services Division for the 2020-2021 school year.
So it's rare that I come to the podium, but for this one, I'm going to come to the podium. This is some work that I've been leading alongside the executive leadership team with Marianne, Dana, Rob, and Mike, the 4 assistant superintendents. And we have shared this presentation with several groups. We've shared it with our principals, we've shared it with classified staff. And as you know, right now we have an opportunity, soon we'll be celebrating the retirement of Miss Marianne Valles, our current assistant superintendent of instructional services. And that brought a natural opportunity for us to really look at the instructional division, look at its design, and make sure, in terms of management structure, right now this presentation is focused on the management structure, to determine if we are organized in the instructional division to really engage in strategic instructional leadership that will catapult mostly goal 1 in our strategic plan around student learning, achievement, and access, and all of the key initiatives are there. So we want to make sure that our instructional division is organized in a way so that by this cycle of the strategic plan, by 2022, we're positioned to be able to actually advance all of that work forward. And the organization of that division is absolutely critical to that goal's success and accomplishments. So why? Our kids are waiting, right? We've been talking about student performance in the district over the course of some of the most recent board meetings. And our kids deserve excellence when it comes to teaching and learning. That's the expectation that we need to have, and that is the goal that we need to constantly be working towards. And we have kids that are just waiting for the adults in the system. These are our students. This is some photos that we took out in the field just recently. They're just waiting for us. I mean, look at their beautiful faces. Look at their hands nicely raised, ready for school, ready for excellent teaching and learning across every classroom as they navigate not only the elementary school, but also the middle school. Focused, with the right technology in the classroom, can engage in some really collaborative, stellar work with their student colleagues. Look at that, laser-like focus that those students have. And so we want to see that in a lot of our classrooms, and we want to make sure that, when they're leaving those classrooms and going out to milk break or to lunch, that they're leaving with smiles because they've had an exceptional experience with their teacher during the last class period. And those vintage students, they look too cool for school in that picture, don't they? So kids are really the driver around this. Our students are always the driver around this commitment to excellence and high quality educational programs. We also need to, I think, work from the premise that the decisions that happen here at the Ed Center, our central office, our district office, matter, and that they can actually impact the classroom, right? We're not to be here at the central office, divorced from the school experiences, not really connected to what's going on, and not thinking that every work, every day, every minute of those work days can either hinder or propel effective teaching and learning in the classroom. And the instructional division plays a critical role in doing that. And we want to make sure in that strategic plan where we lay out in that goal 1 primarily those 4 key initiatives along with a variety of tactics, that those initiatives that the board has adopted in goal 1 will actually penetrate past the classroom door. That it's not just an aspirational or a document of hopes, but it actually can become and evolve into a document of accomplishments that actually did impact the classroom. Because if we don't impact the classroom, if we don't improve the conditions of the classroom, then why are we even here? So we want to make sure that the division of instruction is set up in a way to actually penetrate past the classroom door. And I think, for me, technology is very low-hanging fruit. I think I shared with many of you early on when we started our work together as a governance team in July and August of 2018 that I wanted a technology plan that Mr. Ruiz and Mr. Manguala just presented that was actually going to create a standard across our system, that was actually going to create access to high-quality technology, classroom to classroom, hallway to hallway, building to building, across the school system. And so I think the Promethean boards and the technology that they described is one first tangible way to show that the decisions that we make here at the district office can actually systematically impact classrooms and all of the classrooms across the district, right? And the technology plan that we had kind of initially been looking at when I first arrived here, I think had a lot of barriers and wasn't necessarily going to ensure getting into every classroom. And so we want to make sure that our division is organized in a way where the management team in the instructional division is positioned to impact the classroom, sort of in the way the Promethean boards have created this first nice concrete example in our system during this cycle of our 2019-2022 strategic plan. And then just natural growth opportunity. We've had some attrition in the division because of budget reductions. We haven't been filling positions immediately. We haven't been jumping to fill the management positions as natural attrition happens. With change at the senior management level, it's just a natural opportunity for growth. And it's a new year, it's the start of a new decade. The structure that's been at the instructional division has been rooted sort of in the last decade plus, and so it just seems like a natural opportunity for us to really revisit it and assess it. Last year, you approved phase one of a restructuring proposal for management here at the district office, and that was at the executive level with Assistant Supes, really bringing fortitude to operational services, starting to move enrollment and technology out of the instructional division so that they could focus more on teaching and learning and put that back in the business service, on the business services side of the house. And that has rendered, we think, much more clarity and strengthened the backbone of the divisions by having ourselves organized in the senior management team that way. But now we want to really focus on digging into the instructional division. And so we always say that, we have a Board of Education. Part of our why is that we adopted a strategic plan. I think you're holding the superintendent and my team accountable to the implementation of the plan, that you expect results around the plan, and you expect systemic improvement. And so it's my job as a superintendent of schools to make sure that we're organized in the best way to get you the results that you're looking for as a school board. So, this proposal that I'll share with you here momentarily obviously aligns with Goal 1 of your strategic plan that you've adopted. Goal 2, because it really lays out sort of the leadership development pathway within the organization, and that's part of effective employee relations, at least amongst the ranks of management. And then it's also about equity-centered leadership and inclusive organizational culture, because we are looking to build a team at the central office that is really thinking about equity in our resource management. Are we allocating in a way where, our kids have equitable access to the instructional resources that we know support learning in the classroom? So in the past, the instructional division, I shared, this is some points that I'm just reiterating. Many of them emerged when I did my first 90-day report to the community. Silos definitely have existed. Sometimes it's really hard to get elementary educators to work with secondary and create TK-12 vertical alignment. There was definitely some history of that. A lot of the time, districts struggle with the integration of special education services and general education services. So there has been a history of siloing. There have been some traditional long-standing positions that have just always sort of been there, right? And so we wanted to revisit that. And there has also been a wave of expansion and adding of positions. We have spoken to the school board in the context of the budget and the finances back in about 2015 when there was a large windfall from local control funding formula dollars. We know that there was an expansion of the division vis-a-vis more management and more teachers on special assignment. And so then there was contracting and retracting all of that. And so we kind of have some positions that are sort of leftovers of just this sudden expansion. And then there have also been some reactionary shifts due to isolated circumstances, maybe moving a department from one division to the next in an isolated set of circumstances, as opposed to really looking at the whole comprehensive picture to make sure we're organized the best way possible. And then lots of tinkering and layering. I know just in the 18 months that I've been here, we've done some tinkering and layering because of some of that natural attrition, not backfilling a position. And so what you end up with is sort of a hodgepodge of management roles and functions. And we just think, for all the reasons I just described, we really needed to revisit that if we want to get results. So today, we feel that we need to be strategic and adaptive. Instruction is the most important part of our business in response to the big picture being things like declining enrollment. Also, obviously, trying to, move the district forward in terms of our fiscal future and viability, and then our own specific needs. And the specificity of those needs, I think, are the instructional initiatives that are nested in the strategic plan, primarily in Goal 1. The proposal that I present to the school board tonight, later as an action item, is in response to our current reality. It is about what are our instructional initiatives in the strategic plan for this next 3-year cycle, and what bodies of work do we need to move forward to get that systemic implementation, classroom to classroom, hallway to hallway, building to building. And so it doesn't mean that I'm saying every 3 years we're going to restructure in instruction, but we did really look at the positions in terms of, how do we think that we can operationalize and set that foundation that we've laid out in Goal 1, and then have positions that will be able to sustain that work beyond this first cycle of our strategic plan for the next 3 years. And at the same time, part of our current reality, as everybody knows, is declining enrollment. So this is not a time for us to add management. It's a time for us to really maximize the way we're organized, run obviously a leaner machine of management, given the fact that we're in declining enrollment and we're having to make reductions across the district. So that's why it's really important for us to hold this context at the forefront as we think of a restructuring proposal. So me and my executive team, we worked extensively on this proposal. Actually, over the winter break, we came together, did some work sessions and follow-up work sessions, and we asked ourselves some critical questions. We said, what's the best organization of the instructional division in order to support optimal implementation of the strategic plan? How can we organize the division for efficiency and not dramatically increase costs? Are we organized in a way that aligns with strategic and tactical resource management? Again, are they the best positions to do the best work we can? Not necessarily meaning more positions, right? In what areas has the instructional division in the past struggled to attain systemic implementation? What are the current strengths of the current structure, and what are the current areas of growth and critical need? We also were guided by just 3 things. You can do less with more if you have the right structure with the right people and the right mindset. So some guiding principles emerged as we engaged in these work sessions to render the proposal you'll see tonight. We have high expectations for Goal 1. We expect implementation. We wanted to make sure that we designed the division in a way that there's accountability in our system and that there's quality and integrity around the work that we do. We wanted the restructuring to be at minimum cost neutral. We value some elementary expertise and some secondary expertise, and we had a healthy discussion and debate around that. The reason is because we thought maybe we could find rock stars that could handle TK-12, and there are some out there that can navigate and have that entire vertical alignment sort of in their wheelhouse. But given the demands of the new California dashboard around college and career readiness and the lift that we need to do to show progress on college and career readiness, which is mostly, it's all secondary kind of indicators and sub-indicators, we did feel that we value this notion of elementary and secondary expertise. We have a focus in this plan to really think about general education academic and behavior interventions. We continue to hear from the field that there's not enough of that we haven't clearly articulated interventions for academics in the core content areas of English and math, and in terms of behavioral response for our students. We want to really bring special education into the fold. Special education should not be a silo or feel separate from the rest of the division, but should be closely collaborating with the leaders in the instructional division who are responsible for general education, academic and behavior intervention, that are responsible for curriculum and instruction at the secondary and elementary level. So we are looking for that. And we grounded our work in kind of starting to think about special education so that we as a team were clear on how special education has been organized and the history of that organization vis-a-vis the FICMAT study that was done in 2017 in the district. And so that provided us sort of a baseline of potential improvements in special education. We also have a principle that centralization of resources to ensure equitable access to schools is a good idea, especially in a resource-tight environment. So if every school is a unique universe paying for its own technology, its own professional development, the list could go on and on. There's cost to that, and then there could be quality issues around that. And so it's not about centralizing every service, but we want this team to be able to articulate in this new model what are the services that we centralize and that we provide to all of our schools coming from the hub of the Instructional Services Division. And then our last, and we have some examples. I've already talked about the technology kind of being the first low-hanging fruit around that. That's an example of how centralization can help and advance the work more quickly at a much more cost-prohibitive way. And then lastly, we have data services. Data services has been a struggle in our school district. We don't have a strong data infrastructure, and we believe that we need some strong leadership and management to build our data infrastructure so that teachers have good access, consistent access to formative and summative assessment data, that they have mechanisms to be able to track the interventions that they're providing students so that it doesn't feel like every grade level we're just starting for the first time with a student. And you can't create that if you don't have effective data management systems. And so that was a big kind of idea that guided our work as we built the proposal. This is just a long list of all the, instruction has a lot of responsibility, and this is a long list of sort of all the services that they have to provide and lead in the organization. So we just wanted to kind of remind ourselves of what that list is, and you see those there. So in blue in this presentation, you see the current and sort of past, structure of the instructional division. You'll see there that there's a total of 11 managers minus the special education management team that reports to the special education director. So there are currently 11 managers except for that supportive team. Special education, because of its program complexity, we're not sort of getting into the details of special education and how the management structure works there. Minus the special education director is counted as one of these 11. Is that clear? Okay. And then you'll see there are two positions from 1819. We eliminated them effective July 1. These were long-standing positions where you had an executive director of elementary education, an executive director of secondary education. So at one point, minus that SPED management team, in the recent past, the division had a total of 13 managers in the positions you see there. You'll see in the current model, there's a lot of, there's this concept of innovation and achievement. There is innovation and assessment. We have a director who's, working solely on magnet schools, which just affects, it's significant, and we hear about our magnet programs being award-winning, so that has served us well. But in our current environment, we're really looking for adaptive leaders who can have sort of broader coverage around their areas of responsibility as we aim to make improvements, not just in segments of the districts, but we're talking about broad-based systemic improvement. And we don't quite think that these positions position the instructional division to accomplish that. So what we're proposing is this. We are going from 11, once 13, up until June 30th, to 9 managers in the instructional division. You'll see there that we're proposing, of course, we'll always need the anchor of student services. Student services has actually been the lead around our intervention system, and we think that although the team has been doing really, really great work to launch our multi-tiered intervention system, our student services folks are really grounded in behavioral services. And the key to multi-tiered intervention is that it's academic and behavioral. And so we run a risk by it being led by student services that we won't clearly articulate what the academic interventions are, right? And so we want our student services director to just go back to focusing more of traditional student services. That includes campus safety, it includes student discipline. Some of our specialized programs like independent study, the child welfare of attendance is under that area. And then given the demand from the field around a need for more systematic intervention and prevention on the behavioral side and the academic side, we are repurposing some of that old management FTE to take a directorship into intervention and prevention. And so this will be the organizational leader who will make sure that by 2022, we have a clearly articulated intervention system on both of those pathways of academic and behavioral. So obviously they'll work closely with student services, but they are the driver around that intervention framework and getting implementation to be systematic. You'll see then 2 directorships, elementary curriculum, instruction, and English learner services, 1 for elementary, 1 for secondary. This does not replace the old executive director of elementary and the old executive director of secondary, which were more principal supervisory roles. Given what I think you've asked us to accomplish as a team in the strategic plan and the focus on student performance outcomes, we believe we need curricular leaders at those 2 levels in the organization who are leading and driving the instructional decisions for our school district. And given where we serve, we thought it was worth in their titles naming English learners, because every time we make a curricular and instructional decision in NVUSD, English learners shouldn't be an afterthought, right? Because a quarter of our students are RELs, and we have many, many reclassified students who still need support. And then lastly, you'll see special education. Special education, of course, will work. Our goal is, as we build this new team, our current director, Ms. Terry Lynn, that she would, be working closely with those curricular organizational leaders and obviously with intervention and prevention, because an important piece before we get to special education is to make sure that we have tried many interventions in the general education environment. So obviously there'll be collaboration and across general education and special education. You see the titles, they've all moved to just being Director 3. Executive Director for Special Education, we think there's incredible complexity with special education. And so we've come to a sort of a rule around executive directors, which if you look at the blue organizational chart, the old model, it's a little bit more random around when an executive director title has been used. And so Dana Page and HR and myself have decided, we want a clear line, why executive director in NVUSD? And we came to the conclusion that we will use that management position in only hard to fill positions. So you recently approved the appointment of Kay Vang as the executive director of fiscal services. Fiscal services is hard to fill and hard to retain in the state of California. That's also true for special education because of the complexity and the demand, and special education is challenging. And so when we have someone, when we need to attract someone, and when we have someone, we want to retain them. And so that's why the elevated title for special education. 9 managers there, 2 managers who have historically been sort of in a different form in the instructional division will be moving to business services. You have a director of accountability and enrollment services. So if you think back to the blue, I talked about that magnet schools directorship. The individual who's been sitting in that position has been working a lot around open enrollment because of how much open enrollment matters for the magnet implementation of our magnet grant. But what we need is that person to now take the entire enrollment operation to scale, right? Because we're virtualizing enrollment and we're centralizing enrollment. for not this coming season, but the future season. And so that position will be repurposed to include all of enrollment services, and then also will include accountability. This idea that there's someone in the organization, federal magnet grants have a lot of compliance and accountability. We have lots of other types of grants. We have our own local control accountability plan that requires us to do extensive progress monitoring. So we want someone to sort of be the accountability holder of that. And that's how that position will function. And then lastly, that getting to that challenge around the data infrastructure that we lack, we want to make sure that any tool that we bring in terms of a technology platform, an assessment system, we want to make sure that it's been fully vetted from a technical standpoint so that when it goes to the instructional division, it's sort of, think about it being fully baked for the user so that when it goes out into the field, it's been vetted. We make sure that we've done technical testing so that there's not failures out in the field. And really, that someone who can lead kind of more from a technical standpoint and manage our data services team, and then be able to translate and take data services to the instructional team who can then have it, ready for use. Not that instruction would be responsible for the build of those tools, if that makes sense, right? So I think it's important to note, given everything that we're doing in terms of the budget, organizing ourselves in the way that I've described through the two green organizational charts saves us when compared to the organization of the blue organizational chart. The first one I showed is an approximate cost savings of $322,000. So I think it's important to note that it's not that the district office is adding management. We are taking old positions, transforming them into new positions that are they're better organized to align with our strategic goals as I described, all while saving the district some money at a time where we have to continue to save money. Next steps in our work, we'll be working closely with Terry Lynn, our soon-to-be executive director of special education, looking at the FICMAT audit, looking at our continuum of services, looking at the organization of special education because we understand it has more complexity. Dana Page right now, myself, Marianne Valles, we're working, a part of the instructional division has been sort of an arm of teachers on special assignment, and given our current budget reality, we are doing an assessment of our teachers on special assignment and determining how many we will have, if any, how many, and if we have them, what will they be working on that we think will be the most impactful in terms of student outcomes. And then another sort of remnant when you have that blue organizational chart that has kind of our current reality, that's sort of a hodgepodge of past decisions, that really impacts how the classified staff is organized. And so we'll need to look at our classified staffing in the instructional division to make sure that they're queued up to the new management positions. And so that's kind of the next layer of work. So that's it. Thank you, and questions. This is an action item later in the agenda. I would like the board to approve the restructuring proposal as the ask tonight.
Please.
You want to go first, Robin?
Go ahead.
2 questions, 1 comment.
Okay.
Are the VAPA duties getting rolled into Director 3 for elementary and secondary?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So you'll notice that the VAPA coordinator position is gone, and that will be dual split. So there's VAPA at secondary. That's a curricular and instructional program at secondary. So secondary programs will be held by the Director of Secondary Curriculum and Instruction and English Learner Services, and then the elementary programs will be supervised by the Director of Elementary Curriculum Instruction and English Learner Services.
A similar question really aimed at the Director 3 of secondary. Does that job envision all secondary programs, and I'm thinking primarily, or in this case, of the extracurricular programs?
Like athletics?
Athletics, but also choir, and at our high schools especially.
Yeah, it's complex.
There's just a plethora of stuff that's in the classroom sometimes, but not always, and it's part of the high school experience.
Yep.
That People
So
come to
music, your VAPA will be with the Director of Curriculum Instruction and English Learner Services. We did, in our phase 1 of restructuring, move athletics over to operational services. That's under the supervision of Mike Pearson, our Assistant Superintendent of Operational Services, and we have a principal who has some extra duty who supports him with that. And so that the athletics will continue to stay in operational services, mostly because of, there's that huge connection between facilities, demand, and
Right.
athletics. So that will not be moved to the Director of Secondary Curriculum Instruction and English Learner Services, at least for now.
Okay.
That's not part of the current plan.
And my one comment is, I love it when you get radical on the organization. And it's the 7th bullet on page 28. It's getting special ed out of being a silo.
Yeah.
So, I picked up on it. It tickles me pink. I think the organization underestimates what that really means. So,
Yeah, it's a lot of work and a heavy lift.
as they said on the A-team, I love it when a plan comes together.
I had the same athletic comment, question. I echo the sentiment on SPED, and then just innovation and assessment and innovation and achievement that are no longer, are they going to be absorbed into the new structure then directly into elementary? And, they're kind of gone away, but the roles will be in elementary and secondary directors, I'm assuming, because they're broad-based.
Innovation and achievement is sort of, for me, been sort of an
expectation within those jobs?
Yeah, it's sort of been an area of ambiguity to have a department that's working on innovation and achievement. We're in the business of education. The core anchors around that are curriculum and instruction. And, hopefully we bring innovative people to those positions who can think about, pushing teaching and learning forward to match, student learning styles and whatnot.
I'm not a fan of it, the word achievement, so I much prefer.
Technology integration is a component of that, and you just heard that we have a plan for that. Obviously, the technology services are sitting in business services, but we want our curricular leaders in the organization, our intervention and prevention leader in 2020, they should have a lens on how to integrate technology effective, whether that's innovation or not in 2020, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I'm trying to eliminate ambiguity, and I think that those roles and titles have created some sense of ambiguity in the system.
Great, thank you.
At one point, the organization had quite a few teachers on special assignment who, are quasi-administrators. What is happening to them?
So we're currently conducting an evaluation on that. Dana, do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, we have around 38 FTE. We have about 38 equivalent of full-time equivalent in TOSAs, teachers who are in roles outside of the classroom, not assigned to students. And we believe we need to reduce that number. But we're not exactly sure how that's going to land. So the discussion is with regard to some of the district TOSAs and some that are district managed but are deployed to sites to do work at the sites. But we need to engage with our principals, particularly at the elementary level, and get some thoughts from them about what is the best use. If you are going to have teachers on special assignment, what's the best use of their skills and abilities?
And we just want more equity around that. There's some sites that have 4, there's some sites that have 0, so we just really need to look at, we're looking at that as a program right now, and we'll be having an answer soon, because it impacts a whole other set of decisions with teachers potentially having to go back to the classroom that will impact any reductions that we do of certificated staff.
So just a comment, I saw that we had our data services moved over to the business side, and I understand that makes sense because they're the new technology division. I just want to be sure that moving forward, when we're designing or testing or implementing these systems, that person is working closely back with the people in instruction, that the teachers will then find whatever system they build useful.
Yep, that's a critical point. And just to highlight, we would be seeking somebody with a certificated background. So that would be somebody who, a certificated administrator who's, you know, technology savvy, more technical orientation, is comfortable there, but is certificated by background, so that they can essentially liaison, right, between the technical data services team that needs more of that management and leadership, but then can also work with the instructional division. I do want to highlight that you're sort of on the cutting edge here. In your business services side, you will have an assistant superintendent with a certificated background, and though you have 3 positions now, even your fiscal director has a certificated background. So we're building a team in business that understands the classroom, and that'll help a lot with making sure that that bridge is there. So any other questions? I just want to let you know it's been vetted extensively. So principals, I've been meeting one-on-one with principals and getting reactions from them and some of our assistant principals, and they feel like the new organizational structure makes a lot of sense from them, as kind of having to look up, right, and know where they need to get resources and support. That was really important for me to vet this with principals who I consider sort of our primary users, you know, alongside our teachers. So you'll see it for action later tonight.
Thank you.
Hopefully not too much later.
Okay, great.
J3B, introduction of high school supplemental instructional material. Recommendation for world language.
Good evening. So this material is presented for introduction tonight. It'll come back for approval at the next meeting, and it is supplementary text for Mandarin that's taught at American Canyon High School.
I love that we have enough interest to do that.
Okay, action items. K1, business and operations.
Wait, I'd like to talk about this one.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Just for a second. This is all well and good, and I do support Mandarin. I just noted something at the bottom, and I know it's like really iconoclastic since we just spent a lot of time talking about technology, right? Which is, we talked about everything except how much it's going to cost, and it's going to cost a lot, isn't it? And I think when I spoke to a Kiwanis group last September about, you know, being on the school board, and I mentioned, you know, how much the cost involved with you know, digital schools now. I mean, it's just something that did not exist when these gentlemen were in school, the gentleman to whom I was speaking. Okay, there's something down here at the bottom. Since NVUSD has moved towards digital usage, we underlined strongly encourage the review and recommendation of new instructional programs that offer online student textbooks and resources rather than printed materials. I think if you see something that's, all things being equal, if they're equally good, I don't think that the edge should be given to digital. And we've just been talking about the future, you know, the future blackouts, energy issues. We talked about equity issues. It's hard to believe, but there are, I'm being sarcastic here. I had students who would say, oh yeah, we have Wi-Fi at home, and I knew they didn't. They didn't want to be shamed. You know, these are some of them, you know, you'd see them working late at a very popular coffee shop across the street from us. And I'm concerned about this. And when we adopted textbooks, during one of our, you know, fits of hysteria, program improvement, we got a lot of new textbooks in the English department, and they came with all this digital, you know, you can look things up online, you know, you can enrich your lessons. And a lot of us went back about 5 years later, and everything had disappeared into the ether. It was no longer available. We'd paid for it, but it was gone. And I'm thinking of Google, their plan to digitize the world's library. Well, they stopped. They've given up on that. They're not doing that anymore. It's a good thing that we did that the Internet Archive put up a fight about that. You know, to just give all the world's copyrights to Google. And in my junkets around elementary schools, David and I have had this conversation. We've noticed a lack of equity in school libraries. Now, if we want to raise readers, we need to have good school libraries. And yes, with real books. Elementary school children enjoy real books. They're easy. They're cheaper than Chromebooks. They last a long, long time. Yep, there's a nostalgia value attached to them, then that doesn't hurt, an emotional link. And I would just like to see, like when I walk into a school like West Park, which has a really good library, I'd like to be able to walk into another elementary school in our district and know that that library was going to be just as good, And I think we need to work on that. I think we definitely need to work on that. I don't know how things got so out of balance, but when I see the positively dizzying amounts of money we're spending on things like Chromebooks and AstroTurf, for football fields, it makes me sad. I think that there's some services we should be delivering to our, young children. Thank you.
Books have that great benefit of not being inaccessible when the power goes out.
Right, I know. It's true. It's true. And Mrs. Shallon agrees with me, don't you?
Yes, and the children's books especially are textual. They're larger than the Chromebooks, so that the print is more accessible to the children, and the colors, and just the feel at the edges of the paper, and that is engaging the children in a way that a screen cannot be. And I don't think we have the access visually to get content like that on a screen. More books.
There's a professional. Thank you.
Thank you.
I knew you came here for some reason.
Wow.
Okay, action items. K1, business and operations. Purchase. K1A, is that right?
Yeah.
K1A, purchase of Chromebooks, 1-to-1 student to device ratio.
To that note. Yes, I know.
Device deployment of Measure H
Yeah, you wanna move it.
technology implementation plan.
Go ahead, Ms. Waters.
Well, Mrs. Water, okay, I'm a good sport. In the interest of equity, sure. I'll
Second.
A first by Ms. Water, a second by Mr. Gracia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're a good woman, Ms. Water.
So, I have a quick question. It's not going to affect my vote. What do we do in 2025 or 2026 when these model Chromebooks hit end of life?
And with anything with technology, there needs to be a replacement cycle that's built. So Chromebooks in general are good for close to 5 years. They would be actually good for a little bit longer than that, but Google ends of life them with their software in the background at 5 years, and you can no longer use them for testing. And so that's part of the reason why you pursue under other funding into the future. You need to develop replacement cycles. And so the funding that we've put aside for right now, it's good for about one full cycle of Chromebooks currently. So you do need to look at alternative funding, just like you have to do for other facilities type needs in school districts.
Yeah, I looked up this particular model so I could see what the end of life date was, because I was
We
afraid
appreciate
we
that.
were getting last year's model and we're going to have a short cycle.
I did the same thing.
Well, I want you to know that I did my homework too, and then I put that into real life play. My son JJ has a Chromebook, first year of middle school up to this beginning of the school year. So it lasted a long time with the care, with the protection that it needs, and going through the Google Drive, I think it did fantastic. Up to today, he did cry help to the school district, or no, actually to Valley Oak, and oh my gosh, all my passwords are in NVUSD, please help me get them, and so.
Like covers for elementary school students that have a Chromebook.
I have to check. I don't think we provide them with a cover.
I don't know if the covers would.
And I don't know. I don't even know that a cover would help. I mean, that
Longevity issue or
it's
not.
Chromebooks are exceptionally durable. I mean, the ones that that we buy. I mean, most of them we do the drop test, and so that usually means we actually take one and drop different models to make sure if we're going to spend those kind of dollars, we want to make sure that they hold up to something like that. And so, as an industry standard, they all pretty much will take a fall from. You can hold it pretty much at shoulder height. And when they land flat, the screens don't break from something like that. You pretty much have to drop it directly on a corner from above your head to break them. And so when we see breakage of Chromebooks, it's usually very, very intentional breakage by students. Pulling off of keys, stabbing keys with scissors, that type of behavior. Or the only mistaken one that I'll see is usually if somebody leaves a pencil in between the keyboard and the screen, or a pair of scissors, and then they close it. Sometimes that'll break it, but it's usually very intentional that when they break. They're very, very durable devices. And in terms to Mr. Shunk's question about lifespan and stuff like that, Google starts to clock the minute that the Chromebook comes out, and so usually you don't want to buy it right away, so you kind of you need to test it and so forth, and the clock is still ticking. So technically the longest lifespan that you'll ever get in a Chromebook is probably 4 years, if you look at it from that standpoint. Like, hey, it was last year's model, you need to let it spend a little time out in the field to make sure it's the right device.
Okay, on second thought, somebody else can make the motion.
We're done. We already did it.
No, it's done.
No, I'm just, we're really making people, we're making some people who are already really rich, really richer. We are. And we know how we're going to have to pay for them. We're going to have to come back with a school bond. I mean, that's what's going to happen. No one's giving us money for this. This stuff's expensive.
Yes.
It's expensive. All right, I did make the motion. Who seconds it?
It was done.
Oh, God.
We already voted.
It's late. What time is it?
9:30.
All right.
K3 Instructional Services, K3A 2000. K2, sorry. K2A Restructuring of the Organization of Management and Changes to Management Positions, Titles in the Instructional Services Division.
So moved. Second.
A first by Mr. Joe Shunk, a second by Mr. Gracia. All those in favor?
Aye. We can buy Chromebooks with the money we saved.
Library books.
We're gonna buy you books. K3 Instructional Services, K3A 2018-2019 School Accountability Report Cards published in 2019 through 2020.
Let's talk about these school accountability report cards. I'd like to focus on the second word there in that acronym, accountability. If you look up accountability on thebusinessdictionary.com, you get the following definition: the obligation of an individual or organization to account for its activities, accept responsibility for them, and to disclose the results in a transparent manner. What these SARCs represent is a failure to be accountable by the district. These reports, as they relate to the school facilities, do not reflect any sort of transparency with regard to the actual state of our schools. These reports suffer from many of the same problems that I identified when these were brought forward last year. Many schools repeat the same tired phrase that they have appeared to have been given by the district as a catch-all for plugging into these reports. Last year's phrase was, work orders for services, trade skills, maintenance, etc. are placed for each poor rating received. Projects are addressed in order of receipt or severity. This year, for the sake of variety, we have moved on to repair needed and action taken on planned to correct concerns, neither of which actually tells you anything about the problem with a school site or campus. To be transparent, we should have indications in each of these tables anytime that a school has anything other than a good rating. If the rating comes back as fair or poor, then the rating should have some explanation next to it about what is causing the rating to be less than good. Unfortunately, we have no indication in any SARC before the board tonight why any fair or poor ratings have been received by any particular school. In other areas, the reports list outdated programs and language that is inconsistent with the table report. What continues to be even more frustrating is that the district's language last year indicated that schools understood how the work order system operates and they would use said process in order to improve the poor ratings from last year. As you will see from my reporting in a moment, the schools with poor ratings last year continue to have poor ratings this year, raising the question if the schools ever availed themselves of the work order procedures or if there is a larger, more expensive structural problem preventing them from improving their ratings. We have no way of knowing that, though, because no details are included in this report. I will now comment on the many schools to demonstrate my point. NVIS lists electrical as fair and playgrounds as fair. Why? Alta Heights, interior and electrical, both fair. Why? Also, improperly lists the lockdown procedure as run, flee, hide, when it is actually run, hide, fight. In February of 2019, the electrical and interior were both fair and have not been improved since last year. American Canyon High School. Why is interior and electrical poor? On February of 2019, they indicated that the interior and electrical were both poor, and an entire year has elapsed. Why is this problem still outstanding? Also, the written description of the school as overall good doesn't match what is in the box, which lists it as merely fair. American Canyon Middle. Interior surfaces listed as poor. Why? Also, it says that things have been fixed, so why are they still listed as poor? In February of 2019, the interior was listed as fair. Somehow, that explanation lists it now as fixed a year later, but has dropped the rating to poor, which seems completely inexplicable. Browns Valley lists the interior of the school as poor. Why? In February of 2019, they also listed the interior as poor. Why have they been unable to utilize the district's process to improve the interior of their school over the past year? Canyon Oaks. The narrative surrounding school facilities, conditions, and planned improvements states Canyon Oaks was built in 2005 and is in excellent condition. Grounds are clean and well maintained, as are all school buildings. And yet, in the chart, the overall rating of the campus is merely fair. Interior and electrical systems are listed as poor. Why? In February of 2009, when we saw these reports last, these systems were also poor. And yet, a year later, we've been unable to fix any of these issues. Why? Harvest. Interior listed as fair. Electrical as poor. Why? In February of 2019, they indicated that their electrical was poor. But a year later, this issue is still unresolved. McPherson. Why are the gas, HVAC, sewer listed as poor? And why is interior also listed as poor? Why is electrical fair? Why have they not used the district's work order system to improve their facilities since the February 2019 report, which had the exact same grades? Mount George. Why is electrical only fair? At least Mount George has improved their report this year in that they are no longer attempting to build a time machine to paint in the summer of 2013 like last year. Napa High. Why are electrical and interior listed as merely fair? This is similarly unchanged from their report in 2019. Napa Junction, interior and electrical are listed as poor. Why? In February of 2019, these same items were listed as poor, and yet a year later, they still have the exact same problems. Why have they not used the work order system to facilitate repairs? Northwood, interior and electrical are fair. Why? New Tech High says it is a state-of-the-art facility and then lists the electrical as fair. Why is it fair? How do you reconcile these two incompatible descriptions? NVLA, what makes the restrooms interior and electrical all fair? How has the electrical deteriorated since February 2019 when it was given a good rating? Phillips, why are interior and electrical listed as poor? In February of 2019, electrical was listed as good. What happened to cause the electrical to so rapidly deteriorate? In February of 2019, the interior was listed as poor.
Why did they not use the work order system to improve the interior of their buildings? Pueblo Vista. Why has the electrical been rated as poor? How has the electrical deteriorated since the FAIR rating received last year in February of 2019? Redwood Middle School. Why is the electrical listed as poor? Why is the interior fair? In February of 2019, electrical was listed as poor, and it was indicated in the report that the school understood that the work order system would be utilized to fix the problem. Why has that not been done? River. I assume that the poor electrical is at the old site and not the new one. Why was the electrical at the old site poor? Also, what happened to cause the electrical to deteriorate from fair to poor since last year's report in February of 2019? Sure. Why are interior electrical and structural rated as poor? In February of 2019, the structure was rated as poor, and yet a year later, we have the exact same rating. Why was this not improved? What caused the interior of the school to deteriorate from fair to poor since February of 2019? What caused the electrical to rapidly deteriorate from good to poor since February of 2019? Silverado, interior and electrical, both listed as poor. Why? In February of 2019, electrical and interior were also both listed as poor. Why did they not attempt to fix those since last year? Valley Oak, why are interior and electrical listed as poor? In February of 2019, these were also poor. Why did they not utilize the work order system to improve their facility? Vichy, why is the interior and electrical listed as poor? In February, those schools listed as poor and indicated they were aware of the work order system. Why didn't they utilize it? Also in February, the electrical was listed as good. How did it deteriorate so rapidly since February of 2019 to become poor? Vintage High, why is the interior and electrical listed as poor? In February, interior was listed as of 2019 was listed as poor, but the school indicated familiarity with the district's work order program and was going to utilize that to improve the interior. Why was this not done? In February of 2019, electrical was fair. What happened to cause it to deteriorate to a poor condition, and how is that different from where it was last year in February of 2019? West Park, why are electrical interior listed as poor? Why do they say repairs have been completed and yet are still listed as poor? In February, the interior of West Park was good in 2019. How did they deteriorate so rapidly from good to poor since February of 2019? Electrical in February of 2019 was listed as fair. How has the system gotten worse since then, as it is now listed as poor? Willow, we just had the grand opening for this school in 2019. How is it that the interior of the buildings has already deteriorated to fair? Yountville, why is the interior of the school listed as poor? Why does the table indicate repairs have been made, and yet the school still has a poor rating? Why did the school not avail itself of the district work order system to improve its poor rating on the interior, which is the same as it had in February of 2019? As all of these questions remain unanswered and no information has been provided on these issues, I will be voting no on this topic, as this report is once again unacceptable, and we were promised last year that improvements would be forthcoming this year. Those improvements to the SARCs have not materialized, and so I cannot in good conscience approve these reports, as I do not believe them to be transparent.
Before we move on, I think it's my responsibility as board president, and I just want to put this out there, and I want to remind my board who we are, and we are a governance board. As individual trustees, we understand the distinctions between board and staff roles. We refrain from performing any kind of management functions that they are the responsibility of the superintendent and their staff. As a collective group, we as a board ensure that there are safe, appropriate educational environment to provide to all of our students. And how do we do this? We hire, we support the superintendent so that the vision, the goals, and the policy of this district can be implemented. How do we do this? We do this collectively. We conduct regular, timely evaluations of our superintendent based on vision, goals, and performance of this district, and ensure that the superintendent holds the district's personnel accountable. So what does that mean? I redacted a couple things right now while Mr. Gracia was speaking. Board Policy 7000, facilities. The Board of Education recognizes that one of its major responsibilities is to provide healthful, safe, and adequate facilities that enhance the instructional program. The board shall endeavor to make the provision of adequate school facilities a priority in the district. Because the schools serve as a focal point for the community, the board shall also strive to ensure that the district facilities fit harmoniously and attractively into their neighborhoods and have the flexibility of design to meet the future educational and community needs. The superintendent shall assess the district's short and long-term facility needs. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that we are not crossing boundaries from anything that was said right now into a function, performing a management function, because that, of course, is Dr. Massetti's position.
Thank you. Yeah, just a couple of responses to some of the comments. So, I appreciate the illumination of the board policy around short-term and long-term goals. I've explained to Trustee Gracia and in individual conversations with other board members that our facilities team, our maintenance and operation team, we have been really working on many of the long-term facilities projects that we have. Just in the last 6 months, we've had to address the issue of school closures. We've been having to make sure that Measure H stays on track and we maximize kind of this last wave and implementation of the bond program. And so, we've been dealing with some really long-term sort of impactful, expensive facilities projects. And the things that come up in the SARC around the compliance-oriented tool and matrix that comes to us via the California Department of Education. It's a compliance tool, and I understand Trustee Gracia's scrutiny of some of the frustrations and the inconsistencies of the data. But I do want to highlight that this is likely a data input issue. It takes time, and you have to be in a much more proactive state for Assistant Superintendent Mike Pearson and his reporting directors to be able to calibrate the team that would be going out and doing these assessments. So that's, over the course of time, that's work that we probably, a level of refinement we aspire to get to and we will get to. But given the work that the arena that we've had to be in around facilities, it hasn't been that exact work right now. That's just not the focus, because I think the board and the community are well aware of many of the facilities issues we've had to sort of pivot around because of declining enrollment and finance issues. So I'm not making excuses. We have work to do around calibration, data input. There's all kinds of on-the-ground work that we can do with our facility staff as they look at the matrix and make these determinations. But, there is a minimum compliance requirement here. And so, we've met them. You meet the minimum compliance requirement by putting your assessment there. Doesn't require us to put a plethora of documentation to support it and explain the reasons why. And it could be fair at one moment in time. The work order could have been generated, the repair could have been done, and then I'm going to be really candid, everybody. I'm not sharing any secret, but we have schools that are very, very old, and so the likelihood that another work order will need to be generated in the course of a year from the last time the SARCs were adopted to now is highly likely. So it's not necessarily if the status stays the same or gets worse, it's not necessarily that the work orders generated a year ago have been ignored. There may just be a whole other round of work orders that triggered a change in the assessment level or the input, the data that was inputted. So it's complex. We have work to do around tightening it up. I think Mike and I have spoken, and we'll be doing that work in the future.
Dave, I asked some of the questions about what is the template for? Is this a template that is used to identify in a very specific manner what is going on in the facilities of the school? It is almost a report card to parents, to the community, to give them assessment of achievement and performance. I guess my question is, and what I would, in the dialogue that I had with Mike, and then Rosanna supplementing that, Dr. Massetti supplementing that, is that this isn't the actual template structure that we use for school improvement, that if Mike was going to go to us, to the community, to staff, this SARC report isn't the template for the specifics that I think ultimately and correctly you're looking for in the big picture. Where are we? What do we want to do? How do we want to improve these individual schools? I think the information that you're seeking is relevant to kind of what facilities does. I don't know, and maybe help me, if this is the actual template used to disseminate that information. So I think we're kind of at an imbalance in that when I look at this report card, I looked at, what are the original construction dates? Have we had a modernization plan? Is this the actual, template that we use? And the reality is this particular template doesn't reflect all of that information, nor do I think it's designed to do so. And I don't think the information that you're looking at is inappropriate to want to observe to make decisions on what it looks like, but I think the level of detail that you seek per your dialogue is not something that would be reflected in this report in the norm. I might be wrong.
No, I would add to that, Trustee Jankwitz, that there are facility audit tools. There's the work order system that has tools within it. Then there's the FIT that comes to us vis-a-vis California Department of Education solely for the purpose of this. And it's not like there's teams of people out there in the state that are calibrating and triangulating so that these things are all aligned. So there's inconsistency in some of the data input, and we have admission around that, and that's okay. It's an area of improvement, and we'll
improved on this document. I guess my bigger question is, even if it was improved, the dissemination of that information, I don't know that it would be. Help me. I mean, I'm asking.
Yeah, I think you have
that level of detail.
Nope. No, and I think you have a more managed expectation around what the FIT is supposed to produce. And I think the information, Trustee Gracia, is warranted information in terms of function as a school board, making sure that we have safe and adequate facilities. So I appreciate the scrutiny and the analysis and the desire to know that, because I think it's important, and you have a team that equally holds it important. However, I would manage our expectations around the FIT being the place that we capture that. However, is there improvement that we can make around calibration, data input, training with our team that goes out and do the analysis? Absolutely. Wouldn't you say, Mr. Pearson?
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that we've been using an external individual to do the assessment. I don't know why Napa Valley Unified has been doing that, but it has been coming out of the school planning and construction side. It had not been coming out of the maintenance side. Up until we started this year, and that's the report for next year. So yeah, we're excited to own this. As I alluded to in my comments, we have a training with somebody on Monday to look at some software to see if it will help us in our data collection. And we want to develop the consistencies that everybody has mentioned in here today. I think it's important to note that it's a moment in time, though, and that when a person walks into a classroom or a building or a school site, however you want to describe it, it's that moment that what they're noticing. And I would be, at some point, I'm happy to provide the criteria and things. After I spoke with Trustee Gracia, I did some of my own research, and it is kind of interesting when you go in and you start looking at the data that you're supposed to collect and how you're the descriptors and things like that. It can be very subjective depending upon the person. So we have to do some calibration with the people that are actually doing the assessment to make sure that we're not getting data that's skewed, that I'm seeing it one way, and if Rob's the other person doing it, he's seeing it in a completely different way. And then we could get two different recommendations or two different outcomes on two different sites that maybe match up, maybe don't match up. So, I mean, it's some work to do. It's some challenging work to do. As it was mentioned earlier, our buildings are old. And there's work to be done. I mean, there's definitely
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And then as far as our work orders and what happens with those, I mean, we have a lot of work orders to get done, and some work orders, some things that are noted in the FIT report actually have never made it to a work order. I can't explain why, other than, and it's not to say the custodian hasn't said something, or the teacher hasn't said something, or the principal hasn't said something, but that could be the truth, that none of those things have happened for whatever reason. But by and large, when we know we have an issue that needs an immediate response, or it's a safety issue, we're responding to that in a timely manner. When it's particularly when it's brought to our attention, but even if it's not, we know it. We respond as soon as we possibly can to these certain things. So we're looking forward to the challenge, and hopefully when the the FIT assessment is done and the SARCs are presented next year, Trustee Gracia and as well as all the other trustees and superintendent will say, wow, this is definitely improvement. We appreciate the thoughtfulness that's gone into it and the hard work.
I will manage the expectations around the level of detail, because the FIT doesn't require it. So can we make improvements around data entry and calibration? Yes, but I would manage expectations around the level of detail, because that's not the purpose of the FIT.
Yeah, I guess, my question in terms of this is to you, Rosanna, right? Like, do you have the systems in place, overgeneralizing systems to monitor, right, all of the facilities and everything that's been happening, right? And this report card is just one tiny aspect of that. I mean, do we have that?
Not yet. So we're working on that.
So that's a long-term process, right?
We walked into a situation where there's definitely some antiquated systems.
And that's I think that's the role that we're in, is that we have in our positions, that opportunity to prioritize that, to guide that, and we're doing that. So by making really hard decisions that we've been making, this last couple of years, it's just not just by today or tomorrow. And I think showing this list and going over the list and going over the schools one by one is not teaching us anything new. This is something that the team already knows. You already know this. This has been brought up to us. It doesn't have to. I'm speaking for me. I don't need to have a rundown of facilities one by one. To me, as a governing board and as a governing member of the board, is more specifically is helping with the budget, helping with the structure, helping with the strategic plan, supporting that, because it's not just one facet of the work, it's all of it combined, and it's much more complicated. So just using this one angle is very, very, very small perspective of that, and that does not tell the whole story. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that goes on the record on my end, is I disagree with judging the school district and the schools with this manner. This is just one facet and a requirement. It does not tell the whole story, and it's not fair to use this as the one mechanism to judge to kind of grade our schools on that individual level.
I'm going to disagree, because this is, for the purposes of this report, the whole idea is to be an outward-facing public document to our parents and prospective people that are interested in attending our schools to look at. And it says right there that the SARC contains information about the condition and performance of each California public school.
Right, but are we in agreement that it doesn't tell the whole story, David? It doesn't tell the whole story. So I think that's where we need to come to meet and to agreement, that this list in the SARC doesn't tell the whole story. That is the part where I'm in there, because I can't just say this tells a whole story, so therefore a parent out there should just make a decision based on this report card, because that would be unfair to the parent, because they're not getting the full story.
But that's what the parents are doing. They're looking at these and making their decision based on what they see in these public-facing reports. And so when we don't have information there to explain, oh, gee, we were not replacing a couple bad light bulbs, and that's why, maybe the electrical isn't listed as great, that's not reflecting well in our public-facing documentation that we're required by the state to publish. So I think that we do have reasons to improve this so that people who are looking at our public-facing communications have a better understanding of what it is that we are doing in this district and how we are ensuring that the facilities are adequate for our children.
Okay, that's well and good, and I do share, I looked at this, and frankly, Mr. Pearson, I couldn't believe that the same set of eyeballs judged American Canyon High School and Napa High School, but that's my professional deformation, as the French say. And I would like to say that having taught, in the facility next door and seen hundreds of bodies banging around every single day and seeing something that got fixed get broken almost immediately. I mean, I am willing to bet that there were work orders filled and then something else happened. I mean, it's just a constant battering, of youthful energy against some old buildings. And so I get it, and it's all very frustrating. In the meantime, I would like to thank you for painting 3 elementary schools last summer, even though that wasn't on the original plan, 2 of them being in my district. Okay, they look a lot better, okay? But, we do have old buildings, I know. And I do think that some of these jobs get done, but they just get done over and over. Because...
We're Band-Aiding a lot of facilities.
And because we have kids in them. Okay. So.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll second.
I need a first.
Oh, wait, you want a first?
Yes.
Okay, I'll first.
I'll second.
First by Ms. Waters, second by Ms. Gonzalez Mares. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
I'm voting no, so...
Okay, you're opposed? Okay.
Opposed.
We've established that, yeah.
K3B, Resolution 2020 approving services agreement with the City of Napa for additional school resource officer, SRO, funded by Proposition 56.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Gracia?
It's a roll call.
Oh, okay.
As a resolution, sorry.
Yep.
Trustee Water?
Aye.
Trustee Jankowicz? Trustee Martin?
Aye.
Trustee Gonzalez Mares? Trustee Shunk?
Aye.
Trustee Gracia?
Aye.
K3C, service agreement between Napa Valley Unified School District and the City of Napa regarding tobacco school resource officer, funded by Proposition 56.
So moved.
Second. Okay, you guys take it.
First by Mr. Gracia, second by Mr. Shunk. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? K3D, contract between Napa Valley Unified School District and Attendance Works Community Initiatives.
So I had just a quick comment on this. I would like to see the results of this study once it's done, reported back to the board at some point, so.
Yeah, same comment. I just want to know what they will use on the data they collect, the strategies they employ, and the percent change should we hope that occurs.
Okay. I'll list that as a future agenda item.
Okay.
With that, I'll move to approve.
First by Mr. Gracia, second by Ms. Robin Jankowicz. One for the two. All those in favor?
Aye.
K3E, your home nursing contract for supplemental nursing services.
So moved.
First by Mr. Gracia, second by Mr. Shunk. All those in favor?
Aye.
K3F, memorandum of understanding with Napa County Office of Education for Perkins Grant Consortium.
So moved.
Sorry. First by Mr. Gracia,
I'll second.
a second by Ms. Water. All those in favor?
Aye.
K3G, memorandum of understanding between Napa County Office of Education and Napa Valley Unified School District for the California Career Technical Education Incentive Grant Consortium.
Can I ask one quick question? Does NCOE then provide data on predetermined benchmarks on those programs, and is there consistency of programming amongst Calistoga, St. Helena, and ourselves. And then do we have points of measurement in place to assess efficacy of the programming? You don't have to answer that now. That can be a later, like, email me kind of thing. But let me a generic version of that. Is there an exchange of information?
Yes.
Absolutely. And we have reporting requirements of the CTIG that include both benchmarks of progress around participation rates, completion rates, and such, and also beyond their participation in our schools, do they get employed, do they get certifications? So there's some two levels of review.
Love to see that data someday, but
Yep.
another time.
And in terms of programming and parity across the districts and across the schools, they actually vary a bit. The culinary program is in all of the districts, but they vary from digital media to business to sports medicine to construction. So, these programs are often kind of reflect the interests of the local site and local community, as well the availability of teachers with those kinds of certifications, and kind of just as the consortiums kind of grow, where the interests lie. But there are a lot of agribusiness and agriculture, culinary at the various districts.
For development, if there was some similarity or consistency, then there might be some opportunities there for partnerships, et cetera, et cetera. Could we leverage that? So I just wasn't sure if that was in existence. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, and the MOU is phrased as up to contributions. 3-4 years ago, it was 1-to-1 match. Now it's a 2-to-1 match. The award to NCOE last year was like $450,000. So our up to is, there's, as far as I can tell, no danger that we're going to get anywhere near that. So it's really, I suspect, the ratio of what we would say up to. It was
Right, it's a collective ratio between the 3 districts and NCOE?
Correct. It's the entire consortium.
Yeah, okay.
so, because I went to CDE website and looked up last year's award.
So moved.
Second.
First by Robin Jankowitz and a second by Mr. Gracia. All those in favor?
Aye.
School planning and construction, K4A, SPC 16.20-17, design services, phase 2, district-wide fencing.
I have a question on this. Has our security consultant weighed in on these? But hasn't yet, but will be? Okay. I also move.
First by Mr. Gracia.
I'll second it, and then I'd like to squeeze in a quick question. I think this is the one where I looked up the paperwork, and the contract administrator is Jen Gibbs, which we know from other documents this week is not possible real soon now. So you may want to adjust the paperwork to reflect who is going to be overseeing it.
First by Mr. Gracia, second by Mr. Shum. All those in favor?
Aye.
K4B, SPC 26.115-17 Napa sanitation fee for the River Middle School modernization and new construction Measure H project.
So moved.
First by Mr. Gracia, second by Mr. Shunk. All those in favor?
Aye.
K4C, SPC 12.5-20 award CMAS contract for synthetic turf replacement at Memorial Stadium to Valley Precision Grading, Inc.
So I had a question about this. We sent many things out for a bid, but now we're only just doing this one. Would we get a better price if we had all of them together, or?
Yeah, this pricing is at the price. The company that we want to go with is bidding in all the sites. We are only able to go with one as outlined by the current implementation plan that we have. So we can't come and ask for all the sites to be approved because it's not from the implementation plan.
So it hasn't been board approved.
We'll be bringing a proposed revised implementation on February the 27th.
Got it.
And then the balance of them will come.
So moved then.
First by Mr. Gracia. Second by Ms. Robin Jankowicz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. L, informational. Items under this section do not require board action. L1, business and operations, interdistrict agreement reports.
Joe?
We got more people coming in now.
Come on, I built my spreadsheet.
I do. I have the spreadsheet.
I do too.
There's this really sharp green line over here called Vallejo City Unified.
Yes.
Who we owe 100 students to. So it's a fascinating report. And I'm sure Mr. Manguala is working it into his enrollment Ouija board, which he determines for next year.
How does that Ouija board look for Vallejo?
We don't work on their Ouija board.
My Ouija board has another tab almost every day on it. So yes, I'm adding to the Ouija board analysis, which I will gladly share with everyone when I present about enrollment to the board.
Yeah, remember, we have an enrollment study session on February the 20th.
Well, my analysis says that there's more people coming in than going out. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Quite a few more coming in.
In your report, I just have a quick question. It's really simple. Will you be dissecting by like high school, elementary level, and because like here it says, we have from Vallejo City Unified School District, we have 229 students. Would you tell me how many of those students are at each school? That would be great.
Elementary, secondary, and high
Yeah.
school, as opposed to each school? Or do you want each school?
Well, I just want to know where those kids are at.
Grade level.
What grade level?
Yeah. When we've asked the question in the past, and some of you over there weren't here the last time it came up, but the kids from our biggest contributors, which are Fairfield, Sassoon, and Vallejo City Unified, are going to more schools than you intuitively think, which is primarily the American Canyon schools. They come up into the southern end of the city in Napa. In greater numbers than you might think, although American Canyon carries a large portion of it. But the data is around because you've got an inter-district agreement for each kid.
Right.
So it's just a tabulation and data exercise.
But wait. Oh, nice. Okay, board representative reports. Do we have any?
Yeah, I just want to clarify for the future, we did a switch up on the last agenda and let you know for consistency and protocol. We had debated not including everyone if we knew there hadn't been a meeting since the last board meeting. But with committees launching and there will be reports added to this section, we just think it's easier to just include all committee reports as a standing item. If there's no report, the trustee would just say, no report, we haven't had a meeting.
Okay. M1, Special Education Community Advisory. No report.
No, that's trustee Jose Hurtado.
M2, City of Napa Liaison Representatives.
Nope, no meeting this week.
M3, City of American Canyon Liaison Representatives. No meeting.
You reported on at the last meeting already.
And M4, Town of Yountville.
No meeting.
Okay. And then additional suggestions and comments from board members and superintendent.
I have a really tiny one.
Yes.
The Napa County Reads book, The New Kid, just won the Newbery Award.
Oh, yeah, I did.
The graphic novel that we were all supposed to read, which I read. It was a graphic novel. It was pretty quick.
Be part of our book purchase.
Right, right.
I have just really quickly, just some closing. Mr. Pearson and I are always, we have on our radar that we still have some seats open on our bond oversight committee. Do you want to say anything about that, Mike?
Yes, we had a resignation from the Bond Oversight Committee. Not so much a resignation, the person just termed out. So we are currently at 6 members. We need at least one more member for our Bond Oversight Committee. Legal has advised us, as long as we're searching for that, we're still good as a bond oversight committee to continue to function. So if anybody is looking to be on the bond oversight committee, the meetings are, I think there's 6 meetings a year, and they're about an hour and a half long, and they're super fun. And you get to, they are.
And we're advertising on the website.
And we are advertising on the Napa Valley Unified School District
And
website.
which category do they have to check the box?
We have several open, so it can be several.
And then the second announcement, I hyper-focused obviously on Pueblo Vista because they were here and they were getting the distinction as California Distinguished School. But as part of the Magnet Schools of America award announcements for the year, we also had 2 other magnet schools recognized. So Phillips Magnet School received an award of excellence in the new and emerging category, and Napa Junction received the same distinction as Pueblo Vista, which is an award of distinction. So we had 3 of our magnet schools receive awards from the National Magnet Schools of America Association. So congratulations also to Phillips and Napa Junction. That's a good one to end on.
Future agenda items?
I think we already covered that earlier.
Yeah, I've noted the impact data presentation around attendance works.
Okay, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A first by Mr. Shunk and a second by Mr. Gracia. We're adjourned. Dios mío. How's
You're
it
always
back?
quick with that one.
Yeah, a little bit better.